Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Monday, October 6th. And I think, quite frankly, we could have just named this entire Market Open with one title. And that one title could have been basically three letters. And those three letters, you guys know which three letters I'm talking about, basically could have been AMD. Today's about AMD. Today is going to be about AMD. This is one of the most explosive deals that if you haven't heard about, we're going to talk about in a second. AMD right here up 35%. And it's pretty incredible to see what's going on right now. This is one of the biggest deals we've ever seen in semiconductor history. And when we go through the mechanics of how that deal is playing out, because there's a lot of different nuances to the deal, I think everyone will agree, and we'll see how big of a deal this is. I don't know if the stock holds up as we get into the market open. You might have a lot of people take some profits on a day like this. AMD has not touched these levels in over a year. However, you might have a lot of people buy in because based on the mechanics of this deal and what's happening with OpenAI and AMD, TLDR, OpenAI is going to buy 10% of AMD eventually. It's a pretty big deal. And so, look, first of all, congrats if you're an AMD shareholder. Last week was a big week. If you were in Robinhood, if you were in Rocket Lab, I mean, all of these different stocks, you were in Nebius last week, all these different names are having different catalysts every week. And this week, it seems like, at least today, and potentially for the rest of the week, it's going to be about AMD. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot to get into. We do have a green pre-market, Robinhood, 152. That's up 2%. Palantir fell to 171 last week. That's up 3%. NVIDIA is down. I don't think NVIDIA deserves to be down. This is more so a knee-jerk reaction to what's going on with AMD. So we'll talk about the implications on NVIDIA as well in a second and go from there. SoFi's up a little bit. AMD obviously up 35%. The S&P back to 671. Tesla up 2.5%. Tesla was teasing some new products that will be announced tomorrow. And very curious to get the chat's opinion on kind of what those products are, because I quite frankly have no idea, other than maybe it's a lower cost model, but we're going to see. And so we'll talk about that. Reddit's up a little bit. Grabby Grab up 1.2%. Amazon's up 0.5%. I mean, you have a relatively strong green market. Bitcoin at all-time highs over the weekend at 125.7. Ethereum back to 4,500. BMNR trying to get right through 60 at 58.99. Tom Lee bought another 183,000 Ethereum yesterday. Or not yesterday, last week. And that was disclosed this morning. So we'll talk about that. But the first thing we got to get into is AMD. The first thing we got to get into is AMD. Now, real quick, my cheeks are puffy because I have a bit of a tooth infection. I don't know how it happened, but it happened on Saturday. And so I'm already on antibiotics on it. So the puffiness, it started swelling up a little bit, should go away. But you'll see on the left-hand side of my face, there's a little bit of puffiness right there. So I kind of look like a little bit of a chipmunk. But it is what it is. Hopefully the antibiotics will kick in soon. All right. We ready? We're ready to get into this? AMD. If the audio is not synced, refresh YouTube. It should fix it. That's a YouTube thing. If you refresh it, it should be fixed. Usually it takes like a second. Sometimes that happens with YouTube, but it should be fixed in a second. All right, here we go. AMD, what is going on? You know, I woke up, this deal came out at 6:50. I woke up at 6:54 and I posted this at 6:57. So as soon as I woke up, this is the headline that I had. And I saw the stock went to 188 and I'm like, okay, it's made a move. It's made a 15% move. It's good. There's nothing more and now it's at 220. So I like, you know, the earliest you could possibly have bought the stock outside of last night before the Wall Street Journal announcement was, I think, 188. And I could have, but I was like, well, it's 15%. That's a big move. It's like, nope, it was going higher. It was going higher. Okay, so here is what we've got going on with OpenAI and AMD. They've announced a multi-billion-dollar partnership to build AI data centers using AMD's MI450 chips starting next year. Details. OpenAI committed to purchasing 6 gigawatts of AMD chips. Those gigawatts, by the way, 1 gigawatt is about 10 billion of revenue, which is quite incredible. Expected to generate tens of billions in revenue for AMD over the next 5 years. Each gigawatt, again, costing about 10 billion of revenue. That's also what Jensen said, that it's about 10 billion of revenue per gigawatt. OpenAI will receive warrants of up to 160 million AMD shares, about 10% of the company at 1% or 1 cent per share, effectively getting AMD stock for free, 1 cent per share, right? The stock's at 200, contingent on meeting deployment milestones and AMD stock price increasing. This is massive. And the reason it's massive, well, there's a couple reasons it's massive that we'll get into in a second. But the number one reason right here is that OpenAI already signed a $100 billion deal with NVIDIA last week, and that got NVIDIA stock to go from like 175 to 183. OpenAI signed a $10 billion deal with Broadcom a couple weeks ago, and that got Broadcom to get an exclusive $10 billion ASIC deal from OpenAI, and that really helped their stock. And OpenAI signed a $300 billion deal with Oracle, which got Oracle to go from 230 to 350, now back at 292. Massive, massive deals. I know there's questions about how can AMD afford to do any of this, and we'll get into the implications of all that. But the point is, and I think this is a very, very, very important point for everyone to understand if you are massively bearish this AI build out, this data center build out, and you don't think it's real. I watched a couple of videos last night. We've heard this from Sam Altman all the time. Nothing I'm about to say is very original, but the core essence of what I'm getting from all of these deals that we're seeing is whoever controls compute controls the path to intelligence. It is that simple. And that is why when Steve says these companies are in a prisoner's dilemma and they have to spend, when Jensen says OpenAI is going to be the next multi-trillion-dollar hyperscaler, I don't think they're messing around with throwing out this stuff. I don't think they're saying this stuff just to get the stock to go up. I don't think they're saying that just to keep the bull market going. I think they are very, very intensely making an argument that this is a revolution that cannot be stopped. And the level of spend that is going into this because of the level of ROI that eventually will happen based on all the momentum of the spend is real. And as a result, you got OpenAI, which you would think has enough chips, and they can't find enough chips, which is why they need to keep spending on all these new deals, or at least engaging in creative financing to be able to get stock in AMD, to be able to give them money to make it worth their while to continue investing in data centers. By the way, Sora is #1 on the App Store by AMD. I'm not in the app yet, but I've heard some reviews of the app. It is one of the best apps on the planet so far for consumers. People are thinking it's going to be bigger than TikTok. The AI is so, I guess, accurate at, I mean, it takes 5 seconds to dissect your face and to hear your voice. And then boom, they've came up with an an AI character of you. And then you can make unlimited amounts of videos. When that thing hits billions of users, I mean, we might need a data center the size of Texas to be able to like deal with all that compute, because that's intense video stuff being produced from AI. So I don't think this is stopping. And that's the worst it's ever going to be. That's the worst it's ever going to be. What happens when Gemini and Facebook and all these other companies come up with their version of Sora and it's just as good as Sora? And like, it is going to be an explosive build out. And we're just talking about video generation. There's like 17,000 other verticals that we can get into in this AI revolution. And that is why it looks like we got this deal today. Now, some technicalities on the deal. Patrick Moorhead, who used to work at AMD, he's now a semiconductor analyst. He went deep into the actual financials of the equity vesting and what he, and a couple important things that he said right here. Purchases actually occur of AMD stock at the first tranche at 1 gigawatt, additional tranches as deployments move towards 6 gigawatts. So it's very, very friendly for AMD because they don't have to give up any of their shares, aka the warrants that eventually will cause dilution. But if you own a ton of AMD stock and your stock is up, you don't care too much about the dilution until the actual logistics of the infrastructure from OpenAI are proven to be efficient. AKA if OpenAI doesn't build out the data centers and show they can actually run all the GPUs that AMD has, then AMD doesn't have to give up their shares. Now, the biggest takeaway of this is that the share price hurdle with the final tranche of shares going away based on the gigawatts of deployment of these GPUs and these data centers is $600. So OpenAI has until 2030 to exercise these warrants. They have to meet technical and commercial milestones needed to run AMD at scale. And essentially what AMD is telling the market is, hey, we think we can get our stock upwards of $600 in the next 5 years, which means we are going to massively accelerate data center growth. Remember, in Q2, AMD only grew 14% on data centers. And AMD took a big beating on Q2 in terms of their stock price and just the perception of the company. I mean, a lot of people were like, what's going on? NVIDIA is growing at 50%, AMD is growing at 14%. Like, why is there such a divergence? I think they needed this deal to prove to the market, no, we are real. We are not slowing down. And the OpenAI partnership is just one of probably more partnerships, maybe not to this extent, but more partnerships that AMD is looking into to reaccelerate that data center growth. And as a result, if they're telling investors we're probably going to be 600 by 2030, and we kind of have to be 600 for OpenAI to even get their shares, one would argue if you give it even a higher premium than that, if they're able to get more of these deals, AMD theoretically could be much more than $600 going into the next 5 years. Now, again, all of this has to play out, but the fact that we're seeing the early innings of how it plays out, I think is quite incredible. And so put in the chat if you got AMD. Today's your day to brag. Today is your day to brag. We picked up 100 shares at 157 2 weeks ago. So shout out to the chat because you guys told me. I did a poll and I was like, hey, what's a new position we should start? Nike was on the list. AMD was on the list. Forgot the other two that were on the list, but you guys picked AMD, so we got 100 shares at 158. Also, more importantly than those 100 shares, AMD's in the stock draft, baby. AMD is in the stock draft, and this is a good one for me because this is going to add about another 20% to my entry price, so that's going to help with the stock draft long term. But I'm not as heavy as in AMD as I am in NVIDIA. But if you're heavy in AMD, this is your day to brag. This is your day to say, I knew I was right. Maybe the market didn't agree with me, but on October 6th, the market is seeing my vision. Remember, AMD did not get to these prices since March of 2024. Last time AMD was here, 228 is the all-time high on AMD, March of 2024. It fell from 228 all the way to 79 in April 2025. And this right here is when a lot of people started really establishing positions, DCAing, and joining the AMD thesis. And now you're back here $5 away from all-time highs. So, yeah, I see a lot of people saying AMD, my highest position. AMD is like I mean, this is it's one of those things, right? Where like if you're heavy in a name and the name moves, AMD's up $35. If you own 1,000 shares of AMD, you're up $35,000 today. And I know a lot of you own a lot more than that because you've been DCing in this heavily. It's a day to celebrate. It's definitely a day to celebrate. But it's also a day to ask yourself, are you taking any profits right here? So let's do a poll right here in the chat. Selling any of your AMD today? And then we'll ask who's buying AMD today. Look, based on everything I've read, I think this is not in anywhere below, call it 150, 170. You hold this thing. Like you hold and you allow this thing to appreciate because this does not look like, and then, will the stock go down? I mean, Oracle pumped up to 350 off a similar thing like this with OpenAI, and then they fell down. It is what it is. So if you want to trim, I think that's fine. But at its core, exiting the position here. Now, if you're in leaps, you probably take some profits, right? Because those are time sensitive. But if you're in stock, I think you hold on. Mike is cutting out today. Okay, hold on. Let me switch the mic. Hold on. Let me play this video real quick, and then we'll get into. I'll pick up the
mic. Each compared to AMD's current trading price of around $165. Now, those shares vest as deployments grow, but both companies are also billing it as a massive win for AMD, which has trailed NVIDIA for years. It's also a clear sign that OpenAI doesn't want to be dependent on just one supplier. This is all about OpenAI locking in the supply chain that it needs to scale, and it comes within weeks of cutting a $100 billion deal with NVIDIA. It's also in talks to build custom chips with Broadcom, and comes as OpenAI plans a $1 trillion plus infrastructure build out across chips, data centers, and custom silicone. It is a tightly wound circular economy, and one that analysts fear could face real strain if any link in the chain starts to weaken. Guys?
So can we just discuss, this is in many ways the opposite of NVIDIA, when NVIDIA invested effectively in OpenAI. In this instance, OpenAI is getting shares in AMD, but I also imagine OpenAI is going to have to pay for the access to these chips and these data centers that are going to have these chips.
OpenAI using NVIDIA's funds to turn around and fund their competitor?
Well, so that's an interesting element to it too. But the question is sort of ultimately, where is all the money going to come from? Because even with the money that it's getting from NVIDIA, for example, by my math, it still doesn't have all this money.
Yeah, great question. So let's start with.
Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second. Let me know if the audio is good. What I was saying right before the audio broke up, before I play the video, is that if you're in leaps, I think, yes, today is a day where you probably take some profits, right? It's not the craziest idea to take some profits right here. But if you're actually in stock, I don't know if today is a day to sell. I really don't. I mean, taking some profits on the top line, sure. But if you have a massive AMD position, this is what you were looking for. Like, I didn't sell any NVIDIA when NVIDIA said they're doing a $100 billion deal with OpenAI. That to me was just like, no, this is only expanding. This is only going further. This is probably going to be a multi-$100 billion deal with XAI one day. I mean, and there's a lot more data center stuff that we'll talk about in a second. I actually spent a good amount of time this weekend researching more data center stuff, trying to understand the IRENs, the Cypher, the Wolves, which, by the way, those are up in the pre-markets because guess what? AMD, OpenAI, IREN right there, 5412. They're going to need capacity. They're going to need compute. They're going to need land. IREN, Galaxy, CoreWeave, all these guys are up for the run. And Galaxy's up 8%. IREN is up. CleanSpark's probably up. There you go. That's up 5%. CleanSpark finally breaking out after being stuck at $10 for so long. CoreWeave, Nebius. All these names are going to benefit as even SMCI is going to benefit, right? There's going to need to be more servers for all these GPUs. Nebius right there at 3%. I think that's basically at all-time highs right there. I think it's very real. I do not think AMD is a sell on this news. Could the stock go back to 200 for whatever reason? Yeah, it's up 35%. Like it could take a little bit of a breather. But if you've got this thing and you've DCA'd diligently this year, I think you hold. Obviously, everyone has to make their own decision, but I think this is one of those deals that starts the reacceleration of data center revenue. If you're an AMD bull, you've been waiting for this moment. You've been waiting for data centers to reaccelerate, and everyone knew, at least if you're an AMD bull, you knew it was going to happen. You don't know when or what would be the catalyst. Today is the catalyst. I mean, this is a $70 to $80 billion deal over the next 5 years of revenue for AMD, and all they have to give up is some stock. I mean, I'll take that any day of the week. Okay, I'll take some stock, take some stock, OpenAI. You'll own 10% of us, but you have to pay us 70 to 80 billion over the next couple of years, probably even more than that if we do a good job and we can keep renewing on these chips as demand continues to explode. And I think that's a well-worthy trade-off. And as a result, if you got leaps, maybe take some profits, but at its core, I think it makes sense to hold on. Let me see what you guys said in the poll. 71% say no. There you go. 71% say no. I'm not going to be selling some AMD. All right, let's get back to that clip where they talk about kind of the creative financing of this, because technically AMD is giving OpenAI money that they're going to be then using to buy stuff from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is giving OpenAI money that they're going to use to buy MI450 chips. So it is a little bit of a circular relationship right here, but I think it goes to highlight how much compute ultimately is needed at the end of the day.
With how it's going to pay for it, the $100 billion worth of equity that NVIDIA is putting into OpenAI is also pegged to certain build-out milestones being met. It's rolling out in $10 billion increments per gigawatt. Now, that goes into a pool of cash that OpenAI can spend on anything that it wants to. It is not contractually obligated to give it all back to NVIDIA. So, yes, ostensibly, that could also go to AMD to buy their chips. And, yes, they are buying the chips from AMD directly, which is separate to this equity arrangement. Now, in terms of how they're going to pay for it, yes, there is a huge shortfall. Each gigawatt is roughly $50 billion. So $35 billion typically goes to the chip maker. The other $15 billion is roughly what the data center build out requires. Now, to pay for that, I was talking to Sarah Fryer 2 weeks ago, and she says that equity is too expensive to hand out. So it's all about debt. And so that $100 billion investment from NVIDIA gives them leverage at the bank because they're not cash flow positive. And Andrew, well, I mean, your entire team has talked to Sam Altman about the fact that he has no intention of becoming profitable anytime soon because his goals are so ambitious, and that requires additional compute build out.
So that's a really good point. OpenAI is not cash flow positive, which means this actually makes a lot of sense. To get leverage with financial institutions to finance these deals, you need to have other types of deals that allow them to be seen as a company worth giving the money to. And in this case, the $100 billion deal they have with NVIDIA, the basically $80 billion deal we have with AMD right here, that makes a lot of sense for OpenAI. So Sam Altman just tweeted 2 minutes ago, excited to partner with AMD to use their chips to serve our users. This is all incremental to our work with NVIDIA, and we plan to increase our NVIDIA purchasing power over time. The world needs much more compute. NVIDIA now getting a nice little green candle right there. A little bit, still down on the day, but it's getting a bit of a candle based on what Sam Altman said. The implication on NVIDIA, this is not bearish NVIDIA, not at all. I mean, anyone thinking this is bearish NVIDIA is trying to put AMD and NVIDIA against each other, and that's not what it needs to be like. And Sam Altman right there is telling you that there is not enough compute. If you are a bear on the AI build out, you have to really ask yourself a question. And you got Sam right there talking about SMCI is going to benefit from this as well. Micron was raised by Goldman Sachs to 220 today. I mean, all of these names that are part of this industrial build out, Micron right there up 5%, SMCI up 3%. If you're bearish on this and you think it's fake and you think it's not real because you want to be the Michael Burry of AI, you've really got to ask yourself, do you want to be the Michael Burry of AI, or would you like to make some money over the next 5 years? Because if you haven't been invested in 2024, 2025 because you thought it was fake, you have made no money. I mean, like the money's been in AI. And, you know, obviously I'm being a little facetious here, and I can't say the word facetious because I can't say my S's and my H's. But the point is, like, you either want to make money and you want to participate in this bull rally, or you want to seem like you're going to call the top. Eventually there will be a top. No one's denying that there's not going to be there will be a top. The question is it now? And when Sam Altman says the world needs more compute, The world needs more compute. You either believe him or you don't. And I don't know what the incentive is to not believe him. When Elon says the world needs more compute, I don't know what the incentive is to not believe him. And when Zuckerberg and Sundar and Adela, all these guys, Larry Ellison, say the world needs more compute, these people are already rich. I mean, if they wanted to pump their stock to get another couple billion, sure. If you're going to be that cynical that you think, oh, they just want their stock to go higher. It's like these people understand the trajectory of where the world is going, where their companies are positioned in where that world is going, and their ability to be relevant, even slightly over the next 5 years, means they have to be on the cutting edge of this technology and they cannot slow down. And either you believe that or you don't. And if you don't believe that, that's fine. But if you do believe that, then you got to be allocated in some capacity to it. And it doesn't have to be individual stocks. You can just, buy the NASDAQ, right? Like it doesn't have to be that aggressive in terms of how you think of the overall exposure to the asset class. But I do think it requires a gut check on, is this real or is this not real? And more deals like this today, to me, fundamentally says that it's real. Take a look at this. OpenAI is trying to get a lot more land in Texas. For 10 months, ex-Meta executive Keith Hyde has been leading a secret 800 proposal search for Stargate, OpenAI's empire of next-gen data centers, the industrial cathedrals of AGI. The first will be in Texas. It's already under construction, part of a 17-gigawatt build-out by NVIDIA, Oracle, and SoftBank. His checklist isn't about tax breaks. It's about the juice, scale, and trust on who's got the watts, the land, and the local buy-in. Meta's doing $10 billion in Louisiana. Amazon and Anthropic are carving up Indiana. Elon's XAI is dropping a $6 billion Colossus infrastructure of AI, which would have over 400 or 500,000 GPUs. Because again, whoever owns the compute at the end of the day is going to own the intelligence. And it seems like those companies obviously are not slowing down in terms of how much they want to build out these data centers. This was another Wall Street Journal article this morning from the perspective of what Elon's doing. In 1 year, XAI has become the second largest taxpayer in the city and county after FedEx in Memphis. FedEx has their headquarters in Memphis. XAI in 1 year is now the second largest taxpayer. Finishing Colossus 2 will cost tens of billions of dollars, some AI and data experts say. The NVIDIA chips alone cost a fortune. Musk will need to spend at least $18 billion for the roughly 300,000 chips he needs to have in the Memphis project. Musk said in July that Colossus 2 will have a total of 550,000 chips and has separately signaled it could eventually have 1 million processing units. The speed at which XAI is doing all of this to ramp up, because they were kind of behind in this race, right? GPT was first, is very incredible. So again, I feel like this is very real. I don't think we're getting evidence to say it's not real. Are there going to be some projects that don't work out, or is going to be a little bit too much funding in certain spaces? Of course. But the idea that the world does not need more compute and that data centers are not going to be even in more demand over the next 10 years when you have apps like Sora and Gemini that are at the top of the App Store that are only going to become used more and more is silly. Like, it's genuinely silly. Like the logic of people are going to stop using AI less. Enterprises are going to stop using AI yes. Hospitals are going to stop using AI yes. It makes no sense. It's like you're anti-technology. You kind of don't understand the arc of history if you think that we're going backwards. And if we're not going backwards, if we're going forward and we need more compute, then we need more data centers, which means these companies are going to benefit. So it is quite incredible. It is quite incredible. Aditya says, Amit, I have December 2027 $200 calls for AMD. Should I sell them today or hold? Okay, so when it comes to the leaps, I cannot give the best analysis on what to do, because I don't have a massive AMD position. If I had a massive AMD position, it'd be a little bit different. Look, you have a 2-year out leap with a OTM strike of 200, which was OTM yesterday by $40. Now it's in the money by $25. Based on the premium paid for that leap, I would take some off the table today. If I'm in leaps, I'm taking some off the table because there's an expiration. And even though I think AMD could be much more than $200 by December 2027, which if you really think it is, then you hold on. But if not, you take some off the table. I think that's fair. Even with Robin, as bullish as I've been, I've taken leaps off the table because there is a little bit of risk management that needs to happen there. And by the way, if you're super bullish and you just don't want to have the problem with the expiration of the leaps, just buy the stock. That's what I did with Hood. When I sold my leaps for Hood, I just bought the stock because I'm still bullish on the company. So I think trimming leaps today makes sense. Trimming shares, I would just ask myself, if you're in this thing below 170, you were waiting for this deal. This was the deal to happen. And if this was the deal to happen and it finally happened, I don't think this is a sell. I don't know if the market sells it off. And if it does, who cares, right? Because there's going to be a lot of dip buyers that come in knowing that OpenAI is about to give AMD freaking $80 billion in the next 5 years. But if you have some leaps, yeah, if you're on margin, take some profits, right? Whatever you need to do for your financial situation, you need to navigate. But at its core, like, I'm not selling a single share of Hood. And I know some people say that and say, it's crazy. Other people probably understand the conviction I have in that company. If you're heavy in AMD, And Hood's up a lot this year, right? I'm not selling a single share. AMD is just starting. AMD and NVIDIA were both up 35% this year. Now AMD is up 83%. NVIDIA is still at 34%. Why? Because of this deal. I think this is what you were waiting for. And if this is what you were waiting for, then this is what you lean into at the end of the day for AMD. So pretty incredible. Pretty incredible stuff. What if it's 100? What if it's still 14% growth next earnings? So, I mean, next earnings, it might still end up being 14% because this is a deal that takes some time to get implemented. However, the point is investors are going to look past that, right? Investors are going to know that over the next coming, basically 24 quarters, earnings growth should accelerate dramatically for AMD. But like the big hit on AMD was that they were only growing 14% in data centers, while NVIDIA was growing 50%. I don't think it's going to be 14%. Maybe it'll be stuck 14 to 20 for the next 2 quarters while OpenAI's build out commences. But I think going into 2026, you start to see 30% growth. And if that's the case, that'll be very, very bullish. And all the energy plays are seeming to benefit from that as well. AMD 226, it needs $2 more for 228. Needs $2 more for 228. Saint Sev, AMD was 40% of my portfolio. I'm so happy. I can imagine today is one of those days if you're heavy in AMD and you're getting some love. AMDL, yeah, this one is 2x leveraged AMD. It's up 75%. I would definitely sell this today. This, I don't mess too much with leverage ETFs. If you got, lucky enough, or rather I should say smart enough to get into this thing before this deal and you're up 75% a day, yeah, I'm taking profits. I'm selling as soon as the market opens. I'm probably selling right now, to be honest. And you're probably going to leave some off the table if AMD runs to 250, but I don't care. When you get a run, like when the market gives you the opportunity to make some money on things that are technically hard to make money on, these leveraged ETFs can go against you more than they go for you. I think you take those opportunities and you count it as a win. You count it as a massive win. It's not easy to get wins in the market. If you're in AMD, this is a big win. This is a big win today. So very nice. Very nice stuff. That's what we got on AMD. We'll get more updates from it. Lisa Su has talked about it today. AMD has tweeted about it today, so it is very official. Again, this news came out early in the morning at around 6:50, and it kind of just changed the trajectory of how we think of AMD. This is what AMD said. We are thrilled to partner with OpenAI to deliver AI compute on a massive scale. The partnership brings the best of AMD and OpenAI together to create a true win-win, enabling the world's most ambitious AI build-out and advancing the entire AI ecosystem. Amit, is this good news for Cisco? Yes. This is good news for all the players that are participating in some way or another, whether it's compute, whether it's data center, whether it's cloud computing, aka Oracle. All of these guys, maybe not immediately, but all of these guys, given the trajectory of this deal, are going to benefit from AMD having such an intense relationship with OpenAI. And AMD has had a good relationship with OpenAI for a while, but this deal just takes it to a different level because AMD will now give up 10% of the company to OpenAI. By the way, last thing on this, and then we'll move on. We got about 15 minutes till the market opens. It goes to show how big OpenAI is going to be. I mean, Jensen himself said this is going to be a multi-trillion dollar hyperscaler one day. Like the fact that AMD is willing to give up 10% of their company to the next big hyperscaler just because they want to be, not only get obviously the revenues from this, but they want to be closely associated with what AMD is doing and making sure that they're a partner for a very long time. I mean, AMD is probably going to many trillions if they're able to execute on their vision, and obviously if they're able to inevitably make a profit and grow. So there's an execution risk there. But the fact that every single big company in the AI space has said, Oracle, SoftBank, NVIDIA, AMD wants to work with OpenAI, just means they're one of the fastest growing AI products and they're likely not slowing down. And I think Sam Altman knows whoever wins the compute. By the way, Elon knows this as well. Whoever wins the compute race wins the race to intelligence. Zucks knows this as well. Sundar knows this as well. And we as investors get to sit back for the next at least 5 years and watch all of these companies compete to win in AI. And as a result, as Danny says right there, it makes a lot of people a lot of money because you get to participate in all the opportunities that are created as a result of that. Whether it's in energy, whether it's in infrastructure, whether it's a Nebius, a CoreWeave, whether it's just buying the AI companies themselves, buying the derivatives of the AI companies, whether it's a Palantir that's going to benefit from all the good models they can deploy in the enterprise, whether it's a Robinhood that's going to benefit from all the trading volumes, whether it's space, the space TAM is likely going to need different components of AI. I mean, this is truly becoming one of the best decades to ever be an investor. And if you're bearish because of CPI or whatever, like that's fine, but you got to ask yourself, are you going against a very strong macro trend? And if you are, then maybe it's not the best strategy over the next decade. All right, so that's what we got on AMD. We'll talk a lot more about that as we get into the show. We got about 12 minutes till the market opens. A couple of other updates across the board. First of all, Tesla. What the heck is Tesla going to do on 10/7? As you can see, they're putting a bunch of little teaser videos that are out there right now. I think it's a new affordable model. Put in the chat what you guys think. It could be they have another one of these videos, as you can see right here. And the teaser at the end is 10/7, which is tomorrow. I don't know what time. I don't know if it's an event. I don't know if it's at 9:30, if it's at 5:30 at night. So we're going to see what happens. But it kind of feels, some people are saying it's an eVTOL. Archer posted some video, and there's like a Tesla robot in their video. So they're speculating it's based on Archer's. Archer updates on that. It might be. A lot of people were speculating something like that. Archer's up 5% right here. I have no idea. I think it's a new affordable model. Some people are saying it's HVACs because Elon tweeted about HVACs back in 2020. And so I have no idea what it is, but whatever it is, it's likely going to be something that is exciting. Yeah, Elon right here tweeted, sure would love to do home HVAC. That's quite inefficient with humidity control and a HEPA filter back in March of 2020. People are saying drones. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I feel new Tesla vacuum. I think it's going to be a new affordable car, but I'm taking a consensus opinion there, not too contrarian. So we're going to see what ends up playing out. AMD, do we have all-time highs? AMD 227. We might have touched it. I might not have seen it, but 228 is that all-time high. It's $1 away. $1 away to get there. We're going to see kind of what ends up playing out. So that's what we got there with Tesla. Now, the Nikkei. Did anyone see Japan last night? The Nikkei was up 4.5%. A nationalist first female prime minister was elected. She supports pro-stimulus and economic policies that are more rooted towards businesses. The Nikkei going up 4% doesn't happen that naturally. The problem is bond yields for the 30-year in Japan are at record highs. So although their stock market is at record highs, which is super good, the bond market is also at record highs, basically saying, which is not, I mean, look, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's also one of those things where it's like, hey, investors are saying, why the hell would we buy bonds if we need to, invest in the growth, which is either Bitcoin, gold, or the Japanese stock market? And the Nikkei going up 4% in a day gets you more than, a Japanese 30-year would get you over 30 years. And so from that perspective, I think there are going to be some implications for the credit markets in Japan. I have not studied them enough to understand exactly what it would be like, but I don't think it's bearish for investors to be bullish on the actual economy of Japan. And if we have pro-stimulus and more economic policies, could it be inflationary? Sure, but Japan already has very low rates. If they hike rates, like, yes, from a yen carry trade perspective, not the best thing in the world. But then again, when the US is lowering our rates, if Japan is raising it, it kind of creates a little bit of a balance. It's not as aggressive as it was back in August of 2024 when rates were the highest they've been in 40 years. And then Japan raised their rates the highest it's been in 15 years since 2008. So that was a whole different dynamic. I don't think we're on the path for another yen carry trade, but it's something to monitor. It is definitely something that we have to monitor as we look at the Japanese markets. AMD new all-time high above 227.30. I don't think that's the all-time high. AMD's all-time high, if I'm not wrong, is 228. Yeah, it's 228. That's what you're looking at right there. Is it? 228.19, I think. I might be wrong on that. The point is it's basically at all-time highs. And so you're basically there. And if it busts through 230, then we know we're there. And so we got to see when this opens up. I mean, let's do another poll on that real quick. So 69% of you, I love it, 69%, said no, you're not selling. So here's another question. Does AMD get sold off into the open? That is the question. Do you think this one pulls an Oracle, where Oracle had a massive jump, ironically, based on the same company, or OpenAI? And it hit 350. Now, it stayed there for a day before it started slowly falling off. So maybe AMD, if it does sell off, sells off over time, not just at once. But also, Oracle was up a lot. Oracle was already up 100% when Oracle announced their OpenAI deal. So it was up like 180%. So it came down 35%. AMD was only up 35% this year. It's not like it had, I mean, I say 30, only 35 in a conservative way. But the point is, it wasn't up as much as Oracle. So I don't think it has to get sold off just because it's up 30% in the pre-market, especially on a deal that has way more details than whatever the hell Oracle said. Oh, we have this remaining performance obligation with OpenAI. Like, that was not specific. This is very specific. So I don't think it has to get sold off, but it would not be surprising to me if that happens. We don't have any walls yet. We'll look at the order book flow as soon as the market opens. In the pre-markets, you don't really see them, but when the market opens, we'll see how that plays out. TSM, wow, 300 all-time highs on TSM. That's for sure. All-time highs on TSM. Look at that, up 2.67%. That one benefiting from this as well. Sachin, by the way, shout out to Sachin. He is a friend of the channel. He's been with us on the Pouncer journey for a very long time. And, you know, I really like giving people their credit where credit is due. He's an investor that I deeply respect. He sat on the phone with me literally for 7 hours back in December of 2024 explaining Grab because he lives in Malaysia. And because of that, I was able to buy a lot of Grab at 470, Grab's at 630. So benefited immensely from that. Sachin says after it reaches 250, there will be some pullback. It's at or near all-time high, which is also the price discovery start zone. So if FOMO comes at open, 250 is on cards today. I mean, price discovery we've seen in this market is pretty explosive. We're seeing it with Hood. We saw it with Grab to an extent. Once it broke through 570, which was the 5-year high. I mean, now you're at 630. Not a massive move above 570, but breaking through 6 was very nice. And in general, in the market, when you actually break above massive volume self-resistance, especially if it's a multi-year volume self-resistance to an all-time high, which is what AMD is dealing with. They haven't been at 227 since March of 2024. It's almost been a year and a half. That's when price discovery gets very, very exciting. And who knows? Maybe that price discovery leads to some real excitement today. And Sachin is loaded up on AMD Leaps. Put in the chat if you're on AMD Leaps. If you're loaded up on them, Sachin, I don't know how many AMD Leaps you have, but you have enough where you have enough where you know, maybe the yacht is in play. Maybe the yacht is officially in. Oh well, Sachin just tweeted this GIF. Okay, a yacht's in play, guys. I mean, you're tweeting this GIF. A yacht is in play. If you're tweeting that GIF this morning, the yacht's up there. How much is a yacht in Malaysia? How much is a yacht in Malaysia? Can Grab make some yachts? That would be nice. By the way, real quick thoughts on Grab. Anthony Tan did his first interview with the Wall Street Journal in 5 years. Very, very bullish. We talked about the new products they came out with last week in regards to Grab Maps in Mongolia. Anthony Tan, inside of that interview, I'll get the clip later. He said, I can't say our Q3 results, but we are growing very fast on the top and the bottom line. The exact verbiage was very fast on the top and the bottom line. I expect them to show some really strong revenue growth. Grab also just won at the Malaysian Effie Awards Brand of the Year for the 5th consecutive year in a row. Again, part of my bet on this company is that they are dominating the entire Southeast Asian region, and they are a brand that is just undeniable in that region. And then finally, you know, the other final thing I'll say about Grab is that it is very bullish to start talking to the media. Notice that the Wall Street Journal put out a really good article about Grab. When I mean really good, I mean bullish. It wasn't a hit piece. It wasn't taking them down. It was like, hey, this is what Grab is doing. It's really bullish. For the first time in almost 4 years, let me say that again. Wall Street Journal put out a bullish article on Grab for the first time in almost 4 years last Friday. And then 2 hours later, an interview with the Wall Street Journal and Anthony Tan drops. This reminds me of Hood back in 2023. I remember in December, Vlad did an interview with the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal did a article on Robinhood. And when you start embracing the media, it's not bearish, especially media that's as influential as Wall Street Journal. So all I'm going to say is when companies start embracing the media after not doing it for years, and the media is actually positive towards them, it likely, because the media, as much as they want to take companies down, they also want to cover companies that are actually, you know, starting to become behemoths. I think that could be something that's beneficial for Grab. Intel right there, that's up 1% on the day. GameStop's up a little bit. Archer's up 5%. Dell right there up 4%. Dell and SMCI getting some love. IREN up 8% on the day. Absolutely incredible. You're getting some momentum right there. Hoodie, 2.74%. Hoodie broke 154 last night. I mean, this is just absolutely incredible. It looks like the momentum continues. The bull market is continuing. Bitcoin and Ethereum doing well are great for Robinhood, and that's also helping it. Bitcoin right there trying to break 125 again. By the way, BMNR, we have some new updates on that, trying to break 60. Tom Lee now has 2.83 million Ethereum. Bitmine is the 28th most traded stock every day, 2.5 billion. They now own greater than 2% of the supply. He is rushing to get to that 5% of supply. And here's what Tom Lee said yesterday at the Token 2049 Singapore conference when someone criticized his approach to understanding Ethereum.
I want to get your reaction from a friend of the show, Andrew Kong. So Andrew Kong, I don't know if people saw this tweet, but it was titled, Tom Lee's E thesis is retarded. You got about 1.5 million views. And basically his claim was that, yeah, look, it might be true that stablecoins are going to Ethereum, RWA is going to Ethereum, people, banks are going to use Ethereum, but they're not going to pay fees. Nobody's paying fees for any of this. This is all just a meme. And you should buy, robotic companies. I guess he's super big in robotic companies now. Do you have a counterpoint to what you saw coming out of the Andrew Kong camp, the doubters?
Well, as you know, in the crypto world, retarded is a good thing. So I took it as a compliment.
Okay, very good.
Your boy Tom Lee is able to take some of the jokes, and he's doing all right with that. We'll listen to a little bit more of that segment. I thought it was a very good talk he gave in Singapore, and so we'll talk more about that. Final stat from Goldman Sachs before we get into the market open. Even with the bullish momentum you're seeing, U.S. investor sentiment depressed despite all-time high prices. Money market inflows have outpaced stock market inflows over the past 12 months. Last week, $50 billion, folks, went into money markets. So for everyone screaming euphoria, for everyone screaming that it's toppy, $50 billion went into safe money market funds last week. And over the past 12 months, as per Goldman Sachs, money market funds have actually outpaced stock market inflows, even though we're at record highs. That is very bullish because it means there's money on the sidelines. That money is probably going to come in when rates actually do come down enough to incentivize that money to come in. And that means there's a wall of worry that is available for the market to eventually climb, which is ultimately what you need for the market to naturally go higher. So incredible stuff. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We got about 20 seconds until this market opens. And for those that benefit from AMD, if you've been heavy in AMD, today is your day. Today is your day. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. AMD 222. That opens up 35% on the day. 35% is AMD. Again, 228 is that all-time high. It touched 227 in the pre-markets. Let's see if it can get back there, but AMD is green. NVIDIA, 185. That's down about 1.2%. If NVIDIA actually does go down, significantly today, I am buying more NVIDIA. If it gets anywhere near that 180, 179 level, I'm buying more. This deal with OpenAI and AMD is not bearish NVIDIA, but if the market wants to treat it like that, then we'll buy some more NVIDIA right there. That's down about 1%. S&P up 0.3%, 671.90. Palantir, 4% green. I did buy 100 shares of Palantir at 171. Last week, it was down 9%. I kind of didn't care why. We already talked about why on Friday. It was a bogus Reuters article. Bought the dip on that. 180, that's up 4%. Hoodie, 152. Hoodie opens up. It got to 153.85. That's at 152. Grab goes down from 630 to 616 as we open. So that one is down about 1 cent, but we still are holding above 615. Alphabet's at 246. Wow, Meta below 700. Huh. Meta below 700. That's interesting. I have a couple of theories why it might be below 700. I wonder how long it stays there. Meta right now back above 700. Hit 696. Let's see if that stays there. But there you go. Meta right there below 700. PayPal, that's up a little bit. Elf, that's up 1.6%. Apple, that's up a little bit. SMCI, that's up 5%, getting a massive boost because of the fact that AMD is likely going to need a ton of servers and liquid cooling technology for this deal with OpenAI, which means SMCI will benefit. Ethereum did hit 4,600. Right now it's at 45.93. BMNR is at 60, baby. We are back to 60. It has taken a long time to get back there. Fell all the way from 63 to 46. If you bought that dip, you are green. $60.29. That's up 6% on the day. Tom Lee probably will issue some more shares today and dilute, but that MNAV looks very healthy, and this is the right MNAV to be able to dilute at, to buy more Ethereum and to eventually get to that 5% alchemy that he wants to get to. Lockheed Martin, that's up a little bit. Nubank, that's down. DoorDash, that's down. How about ASTS? Had a monster week last week. Wow, up another 3%. So ASTS, not slowing down. That one's continuing with the space race. Rocket Lab, 57.18. Rocket Lab trying to get to 60. This is basically an all-time high for Rocket Lab, if I'm not wrong. Yep, this is an all-time high for Rocket Lab. 56.95 right there, just 57. CrowdStrike, 498. Where is AMD? 217. All right. So you're starting to see a little bit of a sell-off right here. SoFi, by the way, getting 3% of some news. There is some crypto stuff that we'll talk about with SoFi in a second, but that potentially is creating a little bit of momentum. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But Google right there up 1%, Grab back to 620. And then AMD, unfortunately, getting a sell-off from 227. So you do have investors taking profits, which is normal. The stock's up 30% in a day. How many shares does AMD have outstanding? AMD let's take a look at this, because then we can see the amount of market cap that's up. Ondas is up 15%. That's a big beneficiary of what we saw last week. And that one, in the context of drones, looks like they are not slowing down. There you go, Ondas. That is also green right here in the pre-markets. Tesla 446, that's up 3.74%. Iran, that's a 55, not slowing down, up another 10.5%. Basically, Iran at all-time highs on this OpenAI deal. S&P 671, NVIDIA still down. Wow, they're taking her down today. They're actually taking her down. All right. They're assuming this AMD deal is pseudo-bearish for NVIDIA, which I just don't think that's the case. Sam Altman just tweeted that that's not the case. But nonetheless, you got a bit of a red candle right there. AMD 216. AMD 216. Bitfarms is up 9%. Ondas is up as well. Meta, are we still below 700? Meta 696. We are still below. Okay, my theory on Meta being down is I think investors are getting cautious that Zucks is just spending way too much money a bit recklessly. Not to say that he shouldn't be spending money on data centers and stuff, but he's spending it at the expense of operating margins. And, you know, given Zucks' history of spending money feverishly, maybe investors are thinking he might screw up our margins, and he might not care if the stock falls down, because Zuck will be like, screw you. The stock went from 88 to 800. Okay, the stock's back down to 600. Who cares? Like, trust my long-term vision. Zucks, when I hesitate to tell investors on an earnings call to just relax. And maybe investors don't want to be part of that. So that could be the reason. Also, OpenAI Sora challenging Meta's Vibes app. Sora, one could argue, is a much better app than Meta's Vibes. So maybe Meta's losing a little bit of the AI video race. I mean, there's a bunch of different narratives here, but Meta is down about 2%. Robinhood trying to hold 150. NVIDIA still down. And then AMD, 32% on the day. People are saying Hood is having issues. Yahoo is having issues as well. Legend is doing okay so far. Let me check my Hood app. It looks okay so far. I haven't bought or sold anything, so I can't say, but oh no, it's lagging a little bit. I already see it on my app. Yep. The prices are not updated. The prices should be updated by now. Yep. All right. Hood is lagging. I mean, that's a lot of people probably trying to trade, and they're getting a lot of hit on their servers right now. All right. So AMD still holding on, but Hood having a little bit of issues right here. Google 247. We saw this last week with Fidelity, I think was the name. It was either Schwab or Fidelity, one of those, or E-Trade. E-Trade was the company last week that was having some issues. Looks like we might be having a little bit of that with Hood. 150.60. Tesla still up 3.2. And then Iran, wow, 57 on Iran. 57 on Iran. That is not slowing down. AMD as well. That is continuing to hold on to its momentum right here. Now, AMD has 1.5 billion shares outstanding. It's up 54 billion, or it's up $54 today. So we're talking about a $70-80 billion increase in market cap right here. You do have people taking profits into that, which is okay. E-Trade is still not working, and IBKR isn't showing their charts. Wow. That means across the market, I think AMD might have crashed the market, or AMD might have crashed these brokerage apps today. Volume on AMD is already 50 million shares. You have multiple brokerages, it seems like, that are taking a little bit of a hit as you have all this momentum. ASTS just breaks 70. My goodness, ASTS. This one's been a massive winner. That's all-time highs on ASTS. If you've been part of the Space Bob, you are probably very happy about this. And that is green. Weeble's missing info. Hold on, let me open up Weeble. Holy crap, you're right. Weeble's not working. I can't search for a stock on Weeble. It won't even search. Dude, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know what this is, but I would imagine it's just like a lot of market participants are logging onto their apps today. Maybe it's one of the highest volumes days we've seen in a while, and that's creating some issues. Bitcoin right there, 124.7. Ethereum at 4,600. Yeah, you're saying my IBKR isn't working. That is crazy. AMD might have crashed all these apps today. BMNR is still holding 59.40. That's green. Is this bullish? Yeah, it's bullish. I mean, it's not bullish if you're trying to make a trade, but it's definitely bullish because there's a lot more investors that are trading right now. AMD still holding 33%, back to 220, folks. Back to 220. I am very curious to see if this one can actually make a breakthrough and get to 228. We did not hit 228 when the market was open. Maybe when the market was closed, but not when the market was open. By the way, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent will continue to remain as IRS commissioner. So the White House just put out an update that they will continue to keep Scott Bessent as the IRS commissioner, and they're not focused on replacing the IRS commissioner right now. Archer broke 12 again. Archer, this is on some rumor with Tesla, which I don't think there's any meaning to this rumor. Like, I really think this is people speculating. People are saying Tesla's going to buy Archer. Like, I really don't think that's happening, but it looks like that's why Archer is getting a pump. Rocket Lab still holding 2.8. CoreWeave up 2.5. Coinbase up 2.2. And then the Qs at 607, that's getting a lot of love from AMD today, given that's up 33% on the day. Iren, that seems like one of the stocks, which I don't even know if it's going to be the biggest beneficiary of this AMD OpenAI deal, but it's being perceived as that 15% on the day. How about Nebius? That's up 5%, all-time highs on Nebius. There you go, 135. That's breaking through. What about Bitfarms? That is also another data center play. That one is green. As you can see, Legends being a little slow to show up these charts, so it's definitely affecting me as well. What about Galaxy? Yeah, Galaxy. Yeah, Legend. It's being slow. Let me see if Weeble's working again. No, Weeble's not working either, guys. I'll show you right now. I can't search on Weeble. I can't search on Weeble. This is crazy, bro. I've never had a day like that. I can't. Okay, now it showed up, but 2 seconds ago it wasn't showing up. All right, so we'll go to Weeble for a little bit right here. Galaxy up 5%. AMD wasn't showing up for the longest. Yeah, there you go. AMD. You saw I just typed it in. So you can see I typed in AMD and nothing's popping up for me to click to even access AMD. This is crazy, bro. What, dude, maybe this is not AMD affecting the markets or just market participants. Maybe there's something deeper going on here. Is this like a cybersecurity thing? Legend, IBKR, E-Trade, and Weeble? That's weird, bro. That is weird. That is do they all use the same data provider? I'm not sure. A bunch of them probably use the NASDAQ. I'm sure IBKR has some other international ones they use, but that is very weird. Lisa's on CNBC. Okay, let's go to CNBC. Is she there? Is Lisa Su there? Let's see. Or is she about to be there? If she's about to be there, we'll pull over. Oh no, she's there right now. All right, let's go to Mrs. Lisa Su. All right, here we go.
So very, very exciting. It's a huge deal. 6 gigawatts is a massive deployment at scale. And, we love working with OpenAI, truly a leader in this great industry.
Okay, so Greg, I've not been able to meet you, and I feel remiss. Obviously, you're one of the most important people in this world of AI. I wanted to ask you: a lot of people feel that there was a deal that you made with NVIDIA and was something I was loathsome. People were saying it was circular. I thought that was just blasphemy because I felt that they really were going to go to whoever else had great power. You went to Lisa and AMD. Why? What attracted you? What was in the chips that you felt made it so you didn't just need NVIDIA?
We need as much computing power as we can possibly get. And I think the whole industry right now is trying to really adapt to the amount of demand for AI services that we see coming over the next couple of years. And I think that when it comes to the suppliers of this computing power, I think that NVIDIA has something very special. We use them for training, we use them for inference. AMD, I think, also is really sort of delivering in terms of the next generation of chip that they've been working on. We've been providing feedback. We've been doing a lot of software work to be able to enable it for inference within our infrastructure. And we really see the whole ecosystem as being something that's coming together to deliver the amount of inference that will be required to bring AI to everyone at scale.
And why the warrant deal? Was it not enough to just have a terrific partnership?
Yeah, maybe, Jim, let me make a comment on that. First of all, I think we have to get really on this big picture of, Sam and Greg need more AI compute, and, our job is to deliver that. The thought process around the warrants is, it's actually hard to build these, huge gigawatt deployments in data centers. And we wanted to make sure that this is a long-term deal. So it is really an opportunity for us to align AMD and OpenAI together over the long term. And the idea is, as OpenAI deploys compute, that's a huge benefit to AMD in terms of the amount of revenue that we get from that. Every gigawatt of compute is significant double-digit billions of revenue to us. And as part of that, we have to work really closely together to make sure those deployments are super successful. And as we do that, OpenAI gets to benefit, from some of the success of our work together. So it really is, the best in terms of tying performance to each other And I want OpenAI to be extraordinarily successful, and this gives OpenAI a reason to want us to be successful as well.
Lisa, can you
Look, that makes a lot of sense. Basically, she's saying OpenAI will get warrants of our stock at 1 cent a share if they can execute on actually building out these data centers, which is not easy. So she's saying, hey, they deserve it if they can do it. But if they do it, then that is accretive to us because we get billions of dollars of revenue from OpenAI.
talk a bit about how the dynamic, the element of the ownership in AMD came about, and how you see that playing out?
Well, this is like a new world. When you talk about the type of scale that we're trying to build, the capital intensity of what you need to do, and frankly, the long-term partnership that you need for this type of stuff to be successful. And as Greg said, we've been working with OpenAI for some time. They've given us really good feedback, and frankly, they have some of the best engineers in the world, and they actually give us a lot of feedback on what we can do better. And so our roadmap today is really exciting. Today we are shipping the MI350, which has great adoption, but we're even more excited about our next generation, MI450. And this was an opportunity for us to go big together and ensure that the companies are completely aligned as we go forward over the next few years. And the beauty of this is it's all performance related, right? We have to perform and build great chips, which we're confident of. OpenAI has to have all the best models out there to consume all this compute. And together, we're going to optimize and ensure that the roadmap is really strong going forward.
And I think on the call, you did say it would be highly accretive to both revenue and earnings.
That's right. That's right. This is a great opportunity for us to really, turbocharge our AI footprint. It is significantly accretive to AMD shareholders on day one. And as OpenAI deploys more, we continue to have accretion in terms of revenue growth as well as earnings. And most importantly, we get a long-term partner to address all of this AI compute that the world needs.
Greg, I think a lot of people are saying that you and I, Sarah Fryer, Sam, dreamers, that you have great growth, terrific, obviously maybe the fastest growing company in history. But that doesn't matter. You don't have the money, and this is just one of those things in 1999, 1998. Does it get tiresome to hear about that nonsense? Does anyone realize on Wall Street or when you meet them that this is the fourth industrial revolution? The world is going to change, and you don't want to be left behind.
I mean, I absolutely think that the world is changing as a result of this kind of technology. And in many ways, you can think of AI as making computers much more useful than they've ever been, almost fulfilling the promise of what they were supposed to be, right? You think about how much of using a computer right now is you contorting yourself to the interface and you thinking hard about the problems and the computer doing a small amount of productivity enhancement. But where we're heading is machines that are much more capable and have this almost intelligence within them. And we're seeing the productivity gains across every sector of the economy. People are using ChatGPT, 800 million weekly active users. And these models, we know how to make them much more capable. And so that's really what's driving the progress, is that we're on this exponential of AI improvement. And we've been on that trajectory, not just for a year, not just for 3 years since releasing ChatGPT, but really for the whole decade OpenAI has been around, and the whole industry for much longer. And so what we're really seeing is a world where there's going to be absolute compute scarcity because there's going to be so much demand for AI services, and not just from OpenAI, really from the whole ecosystem. And so that's why it's just so important for this whole industry to come together and say, how can we build in advance of this compute desert that we're heading towards otherwise?
All right, so it does not look like the compute wars are slowing down. Unfortunately, Hood was down for the past 10 minutes. It looks like it's coming back. My app is starting to work again. I think a lot of other people are saying it is working again. I don't know if the stock is down 1% based on the app not working, but it very well could be. Again, not the best look for Hood, but at the end of the day, either it's a server issue or is not able to handle the traffic, but it does look like it's back. At least on my end, it looks like it's starting to come back, and Legend also is starting to work. NVIDIA recovering back to 187, folks. So even with AMD taking that big of a hit, AMD still holding on to 216. That's up 30%. Did not hit all-time highs yet. NVIDIA was down to 184. That's down to 187. Grabs at 621. Hoodie is still down. Maybe get a rebound over 150 as the app is recovering and people will buy the stock again after probably hate selling it for the past 5 minutes. Fidelity's frozen too. Yeah, dude, I don't think this was a Robinhood thing, guys. And I'm not just saying that because I own Robinhood stock. Like, genuinely, everyone in the comments is saying Fidelity, E-Trade, Webull, and IBK are having issues. Maybe Hood was having a little bit more of issues, but it seems like the entire industry today had some issues, and it looks like they're starting to come back. Now you guys are saying that Fidelity is having some issues. Schwab is the only one that no one I've seen any comments saying that Schwab has an issue, or SoFi. So if you're on Schwab and SoFi today, I think you've been okay. But the other ones, it looks like has been taking a little bit of a hit. ETH still above 4,600, which ironically is kind of bullish because it means maybe a lot of people are rushing to buy in. And that could be happening. Bitcoin right there, 125 or 124.50. Circle, that's up a little bit. App Lovin', that's down 1.32%. American Express rolled out an advertising platform today. That stock's down a little bit. 34 million members are going to have access to, or advertisers are going to have access to 34 million members in a proprietary ad platform. That stock is flat, but it looks like that could be bullish for them. SoFi, that's up about 1%. Google, that's up a little bit. S&P still holding on to 670. Palantir, nice 4% move. Nice 4% move from that 171 Reuters article that took it down 9% and back into the 180s. So if you bought the dip last week, not too bad. And then Intel right here. Wow, Intel actually making a move. Now remember, Intel potentially is working with AMD for their foundries, or AMD potentially is going to use Intel as one of their core foundries instead of just TSM, which would be very, very bullish Intel. TSM already has the majority of that business. TSM 305. Let's look at some of these market caps today. Nvidia's at 4.5 trillion, Microsoft's at 3.8, Alphabet's at 3.8, Google's at 2.9, TSM now 1.5 trillion, Broadcom at 1.6, and Meta's at 1.7. Is Meta still down? Does anyone know why Meta's down? I didn't see any downgrades today. 695. What is going on? 695. Big Bear AI, that one's still moving, 8%, 780. Hive, another data center play along with AMD. Hive's up 17%. Where's Iran? Iran is still up 11%. Red Cat got an upgrade last week, and that's why it's getting some love. That's up another 10% right there. Looks like AMD is not stopping around those. However, AMD is selling off. And again, it's normal. It was up 38%. Now it's up 30%. But it's not easily busting through to get to price discovery, which would be when AMD really starts to have a fun time. It looks like investors are taking some profits right here. Bitfarms, that's up 13% as well. It looks like investors are taking some profits right here. They're still talking about this deal, so let's go back to it. We have some more updates right here on the specifics of it, and then we'll keep going from there.
Can drive so much intelligence in the world. We see it everywhere. I mean, we love the partnership with OpenAI, but frankly, we have a number of other customers that are doing great work in AI. And the fact is, this is an entire industry and ecosystem. It's not just about, what's happening today. It's really about what we can enable in the future. And, I'd like to say, we're on like a 10-year growth path with AI, and we're still in the very early innings. And at the end of the day, you need the foundational compute to do that. And you need partnerships like this that really bring the ecosystem together to ensure that, we can really get the best technologies, out there. So we're super excited about the opportunities here. And frankly, it's what AI can do for the world. It is, beyond the infrastructure, but we're, very happy to be able to provide a significant piece of this infrastructure.
Hey, Greg, to Jim's point, I mean, there's the financing concern, but there's also sort of the broader public concern about how the technology at large will displace employment, the drain on resources, whether that's water or electricity, what it does to local communities if a data center is built. Is the industry, in your view, sort of prepping a way to educate America or the world why they should be not as worried about those things?
Yeah, I think there's two aspects to this. One is the industry really preparing to improve every part of the supply chain. And I think that's everything from the electrons to the silicon. And if you look at where the technology is going, that I think that things like water use, that we're moving away from air-cooled data centers towards these water-cooled data centers that are on a closed loop. And so that I think actually that the resources required are something that we're really focused on trying to make sure that there can be enough, and that the benefits of the AI technology that are commensurate. I think people really understanding why is AI important? Why is this something that is worth building is very fundamental. And that's very fundamental to OpenAI's mission. Our mission is to ensure that this technology benefits everyone, that it benefits all of humanity. And that what we've been seeing is not just Yeah, it's really wild when I just look at how much we are held back. And in many ways, we have, we've scaled our compute probably 10x over the past year. But if we had 10x more compute, I don't know if we'd have 10x more revenue, but I don't think it'd be that far.
Wow. Okay, that's really important.
Pretty incredible. If we had 10x more compute, we would have substantially more revenue. By the way, Oklo, my goodness, 145. You guys know why it's running. It's running because all these data centers that OpenAI is going to build with the help of AMD today, and NVIDIA, SoftBank, Oracle, all of that is a tailwind for nuclear energy. Oklo does not have any revenue yet, but they are expected to get a lot of revenue one day. This market cap is now $21 billion, up 15% on the days. The stock was at $6 back in September of last year. It's getting some love. Palantir, that's up 5%. Hood is still down about 1%. Most of you are saying Hood has fixed itself. A couple of you guys are saying Hood is still having an issue. I'm seeing a lot more comments about Fidelity having issues. I don't really know if this is a Hood-specific name today. Is it a good look for Hood? Not at all. Not at all, objectively. But I just don't know if it's Hood-specific, given the amount of people that are now saying Fidelity, IBKR, etc. And at least Hood is coming back for some people. But yes, it is looking like a lot of people went to their brokerages this morning, and none of them could necessarily handle all the demand outside of Schwab and SoFi. AMD right there, selling off to 210. 20 Hood is still down again. All right, so there you go. Hood is still having some issues. Look, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. Objectively, I can say that as a shareholder. It's obviously, given their history, not good if they can't handle some of the traffic. And I would imagine we'll probably get an update from Hood later about exactly why this happened. But you do have Down Detector, which is one of those websites that tracks companies that go down, or websites that go down. They have confirmed Hood is down today. So that is not the best. Meta right there, 695. PayPal, that's up 1.63. SPY's losing a lot of its gains. AMD, the sad thing on AMD is if this thing falls back into like the 170s, which I find it hard to believe. And so I think we got to keep an eye on this thing today. How much juice is left in this one? I really would not expect it to go back below 200. If it does, then it's still a pump of 15%. It just wipes away a lot of the excitement, which is very similar to what happened with Oracle last week. And it would be sad short-term. Long-term, it is what it is, right? If you believe in AMD, then you obviously believe there's a pathway to get the stock to $1,000 one day. But that would be a little annoying for AMD shareholders if that one takes a hit. And but ironically, if it falls back to the 170s, 180s, I think you get a lot more buyers. Same thing for Hood. I mean, I know Hood's down 1% right here. People may be associating it with their outage right now. But Hood was at 120 last Monday. It was at 150 today. So pullback is not really that crazy to imagine. And I do think you'll get more buyers if that becomes more aggressive. Tesla right there, 437. NVIDIA is down 1%. ASTS, 72. ASTS, 72. Uber's at 2.64% down. And then Roblox, 123. Meta, all right, we're going to take a starter, folks. We're going to take a starter. We're going to do 5 shares of Meta. We're going to do 5 shares. Nothing too crazy. Below 700. I am interested realistically back in the 670s. I get more excited, but we're going to do 5 shares right there. All right, there you go. 697, 697.20. 697.20. We're in for Meta. Let's see. This is more so just an invest than investigate on why the hell Meta is down in the first place. Because I have no idea why Meta is taking a hit. I have some theories, but not sure why. If anyone has a reason, let me know. Like, why is Meta down? Like, what is happening? Is this because of OpenAI and Lisa Su and like markets like bearish on Meta now? Meta is one of AMD's biggest customers, so that would be weird. This is the last thing Lisa Su had to say on the interview. Let's finish up with that, and then we'll keep going.
Used around the world as much as possible. We appreciate the president's support. This administration has been extremely supportive to us as American companies, and we'll continue to work through those pieces. But today is really about just the global AI demand and the opportunity to as Greg says, deploy as much compute as possible. We have the technology, we have the supply chain, we have the partnerships. Really special day for us, and we view this as the beginning of lots and lots of things that we will be doing together.
Absolutely. Now, Greg, some people say you are looking and targeting certain verticals. I mean, you announced the Etsy deal last week. I mean, maybe it's retail. We know that you are with Stargate. It could be massive compute. We're not sure. Do you want to be in every vertical? Because if you want to be in, is this one of those where if you fight in every battle, you can't win any? Are there some that you just think, look, we don't want to be in autonomous self-driving. We don't want to be in robots. Or do you say the world's our oyster? Let's be in everything. We can win everything.
Well, and first of all, I'd also like to add to what Lisa said, that I think compute power is going to become a national security asset. And I think that having as much compute power as possible for each nation is going to be...
That's a big deal, bro. Compute power being a national security asset. That is why these stocks are getting bid up. If the existential nature of a country depends on the amount of compute they have, that is why AMD is getting a 30% day.
Something that we'll see on the world stage. And that's part of what feeds all of this demand and need to do the build out. In terms of the verticals that we're in, I think that this is always a very difficult decision for us, because we really think about AI as something that lifts up the whole economy, but we can't possibly be experts in every single domain of the economy. So we have to focus on the areas that we can most understand and add value and that really accrete together. And so we think about things like coding. That's an area that we've really gone deep. We've released models like Codex and systems around it that are used by developers to be able to achieve much more than they would otherwise. And we think that bringing that into various enterprise verticals, right, in AI for sales, in AI for customer support, that is able to enhance what people are able to do and help every company be much more productive.
And as a result, they're going to need a lot more compute. PayPal right there, 70.69. Bitcoin, folks, Bitcoin and ETH. They are running ETH, wow, 46.39, Bitcoin 125.1. We saw Bitcoin all-time highs on Sunday morning, like around 1 a.m. And now it's at 125.1, right below its all-time highs. You did have some sellers that went all the way back down to 122, but now back at 125. Bitmine at 60.64. Looks like this one wants to break 61 again. That's up 7% on the day. Great day for Bitmine, and it's a great day for them to raise more capital and buy more Ethereum. IREN right there, that's still up 12.4%. AMD 208. All right, it's starting to get sold off a bit more aggressively. Still up 26%, so you just can't complain. But let's see if we can hold on to at least the 205. SoFi, that's up a little bit. Nvidia, that's back down to 186, and then Hoodie at 147. Hoodie's at 147. The warrants on Grab are running. Grab right there at 624. Do they have the warrants on Legend? Yeah, they do. Warrants are up 8%. All right. Those warrants expire at $11 a share in 2026 in December, which, I think Grab can get there. But there you go. Grab right there's up 1.3. And then Tesla 2.59. Again, Tesla, there are rumors of what's going to happen tomorrow. We have no idea. By the way, this is the down detector. Robinhood users reporting a major outage. So yes, there definitely was an outage. I think it's back. I think my app's working okay. I was able to buy some Meta and had no issues, but it might still be an issue for people. Meta, by the way, back to 700. Oh, by the way, the reason Meta might be getting hit. So this is a good point. Remember that app I showed you guys last week from India that gained like 350,000 users in a day? It's this like WhatsApp competitor. It's scaling really well, and it's nowhere near the size of WhatsApp. But there was an article this morning from the Wall Street Journal saying that, hey, this is something that if you're in Meta, you definitely have to look at, because India is a massive business for Meta, especially for WhatsApp. And if WhatsApp starts losing users to this new app called Atari or some, I forgot the name of it, but it's some Indian messaging product that's native to India, which naturally might attract more Indians to use it if an Indian company made it. That could be very, very enticing. Now, that's not a bear case for Meta in any sense of the imagination, but maybe that's a little bit of the reason why it took a dip. Also, again, this whole, Zuck's spending like a drunken sailor, that narrative, I think, is actually the real reason why Meta's taking a hit. I don't know how much of that reason affects their operating margins. We'll find out in 3 weeks when we get earnings. By the way, we have Delta earnings this week. We have Levi's this week. We have Pepsi this week. And then we have Applied Digital, Tilray, and that's it. Delta, Tilray, Pepsi, Applied Digital, and Levi's. So we have those earnings this week as we officially start off earnings season. Palantir right there, 182, up from 171. EOSE, the energy names, are running as well. Wow, 16%. That's green. What about Bloom Energy? Is that getting some love? Bloom is barely up 1%. Oklo and EOSC are up 10 and 15%. AMD is the number one topic trending on X. Yeah, dude. We're going to find out what happened with the brokerages today, but it literally could have been the amount of AMD investors or new investors or sellers that came into their brokerage apps this morning and ended up crashing some of those apps. Robinhood being the worst of it so far, based on what we've seen. But maybe it was from AMD. SMCI right there, 55. That's up 6%. That is not stopping. And then Dell, that is also running GRST, that is similar to Oklo. This one might be OTC or GSRT 17. This looks like a SPAC though. Okay, this is a SPAC. Where's Chamath SPAC? That's up 17%. Looks like this SPAC might be targeting an energy company. That's why it's running. Chamath SPAC is up 1% as well, 11.17. So Chamath SPAC is green. Nano Nuclear, that's up 18%. I mean, they're up based on the pure idea that you need more energy demand. That's it. What's the other one? SMR. That's up 6%. And then Oklo is also up 10%. Amit, do you think Palantir can be 210 by the end of October? I think 210 is a bit aggressive by end of October. I think end of year, it is possible if Palantir delivers a 50% quarter, but they have their earnings in November. So if you're selling covered calls, I would not do anywhere near 210 or 200 for the end of November. End of October, I think it's going to be a little tough for them to break 200. You probably need a catalyst for that, but yeah, after earnings, I think there is a possibility. But the fact that Palantir, I mean, dude, it fell all the way to 171, lost like 40 billion in market cap, and came right back today. It just goes to show that Reuters article was nonsense. And as a result, you know, Palantir is gaining its momentum back from that article. Robinhood trying to go back to 149 right here. You're getting a green candle, 148.87. Galaxy's also running. We interviewed Mike Novogratz last week. Great interview, in my opinion. I think he really explained the thesis very well. I don't own this stock yet, but that's up 7.5%. Meta's running a little bit. Did we get the bottom, guys? 690 was the bottom, but 697, is that the bottom on these 5 shares? Maybe we'll see. Meta right there, 705. Plug Power, hydropower, still starting to get a narrative of demand. That's up another 4% on the day. Bitfarms, that's up. And then BMNR, did we break 61? We have broken 61, folks. She's green. She is green. What I'm probably going to do with my BitMine is I think I'm just going to roll my covered calls up to January 100s. Believe it or not, I am getting a credit on my January 100. The options market in this name is something I've never seen before. I am getting a net credit for rolling to January 105. That's an extra $50 a share, $45 a share, and I'm not getting paid for it. And if it gets to 105, I'll manage it then, but I wouldn't be too upset to sell at least a little bit at 105, given I bought it at 46. So, I mean, look, I was talking to someone else yesterday who had 55 covered calls for Friday last week. They got to roll up to 60 for October 17th, and they got paid for it. They got to go from 55 to 60, which when you're rolling covered calls, it's not easy to get paid. Usually you're the one doing the paying when you increase your strike price because you're getting eligible for more share appreciation. But because the options market is so damn liquid and you have so many call buyers, you're actually able to make money on these rolls. It's quite incredible. I've never seen a name like this. It is the 28th most traded stock every single day. HIM's right there up 2.76%. But BMNR really getting some momentum. NVIDIA still slightly down on the day. Where's Fubo? Fubo right there. That's still down about 1.2. And then Tessie holding on to 440. Yeah, I mean volatile, but you need liquidity as well, right? It's definitely volatile, which is why it's creating these premiums. But you need a lot of liquidity because someone needs to buy those calls when you sell it to them. And there's tons and tons of liquidity that is out there. So this is quite incredible. AMD, again, story of the day, 209. I think a close above 200 would be very good for the bulls. Let me know in the chat. Has anyone sold AMD today? Sold AMD, sold option. Oh, here's another question. Have you bought AMD today? Let me ask that as a poll. 52% of you said AMD will get sold off at the open. So it's about 50-50. Most were right. Did you or are you buying AMD today? Let's see how many buyers we have. Matt says I sold 10 shares. Alex says I sold. Hasi says I sold my 180 call at the open. Not bad. Sam says I bought so much freaking AMD. Miss KM says I sold my Leap for 183% gain. Dude, this is what you want to see in a bull market. You want to see real deals. You want to see real milestones for those deals to be accomplished. You want to see the sector that's thriving continue to thrive with diversified deals, not just NVIDIA leading the way. And that's what we're getting today with AMD. And then you want to see people participate. I mean, you want to see people actually be able to take profits into a bull market because of their diligent DCAing. And it looks like that's what a lot of people are getting to do today with AMD. Sachin says, I didn't sell any of my Leaps, though I closed my 160 cash script puts as 98% premium was realized. Yeah, my uncle also had, I don't think it was 160. I think it was 180 cash script puts. or no, I think it was like 165 to 170 that were underwater a couple weeks ago. And he rolled those out like 2 weeks, and now they should probably be up 90 to 95%. So closing puts today, definitely a good idea, even if you're not selling those leaps. And I was hoping for a little bit more of a dip on NVIDIA. I mean, because NVIDIA going down on this news is just ridiculous. But they're giving us a percent down, not that much more. Below 180 is when I'd probably buy another 100 shares if we actually get below there. But it's not doing too much. NVIDIA is still slightly down. AMD right there, 27%, 210. That is green. I mean, what do I do with a call that I sold at 165, expiring 1010? All right, so you are deep in the money here. So you sold a call expiring for 165 October 10th. First of all, don't feel bad. No one could have known an OpenAI deal was going to pop up out of nowhere. But it did, right? So now you have to navigate that. So you have to look at where you can roll it. You're probably going to have to go out into the March of 2026, June of 2026 timeframe to get out there. You'll probably get an easier roll if you go to like January 2027. Maybe you can get up there to like 220, 230. So at least you get to get another $80 of capital appreciation a share. Or you let the shares get sold at 165. But yeah, if you have covered calls on a day like this that are now deep in the money, you lost, right? The buyer won, you lost. You can navigate it by rolling it, and you can, monitor the situation and still try to get more shares. It's just now you're likely gonna have to roll at that point. Eslam says, I sold my AMD calls last week. I'm crying in a corner right now. Yeah, if you bought calls and sold them before this run up, it sucks, right? Sometimes it sucks. It happens. It's why the market is so ruthless, right? Microsoft, by the way, 520, finally back to 520 after a couple weeks. Like, you could have made some good profit selling some calls last week on AMD, and then boom, if you just held on a little bit more to those options, they could have, been up hundreds of percent today. MicroStrategy right there, that's up 3.4 based on Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin's still holding 125. Now, again, if you do get a pullback on AMD, you're going to be able to manage some of these positions. The question is, do we think AMD gives a significant pullback? So far, from 220 to 208, you've already gotten a decent 8-9% down. The question is, does this one keep falling like Oracle fell? I mean, again, Oracle went from 250 to, or 350 to, at this point, 290. I don't think AMD has to do that, especially because the details on this are very specific. But if it does, then that could help some people to manage things out. Bandwagon says, I just passed 50% year to date. Yeah, when we do the year to date updates on Friday, I mean, AMD, it's definitely going to help a lot of people. This is why when everyone's putting these year to date updates and people are like, oh, these are fake. I'm like, no, dude, there are people who are heavily loaded up on AMD. There were people that were heavily loaded up on Robinhood or a Google, and those names exploded. And if you have leaps on those names and they explode, I mean, your year to dates can massively outperform based on allocating on these names. And so I think that will definitely help a lot of people. SMCI right there, that's up 5.59%. BM&R at 61. Amid, is BM&R still a good buy right here? You have to ask yourself, what do you think about Ethereum and if it's going up or if it's going down? I know that's a very simple response, but if Ethereum's going down, BM&R is going down with it. If you think Ethereum's developing a good base, it's not likely going to touch that 41, 4,200 level again. I'm not saying BM&R has to be at 60, but it might not easily go back down to 47 like it was at last week. And so I think it's one of those things where you kind of just have to ask yourself how bullish you are on Ethereum. Now, again, BM&R, the function of making this stock go down, like intrinsically, is that they will dilute. Maybe they haven't diluted yet. Maybe they diluted at 61.50, but issuing more shares will get it to come down. It's just the more Ethereum they get. And if Ethereum goes higher, that means the net asset value goes higher and the MNAV expands. And then it's hard to kind of time exactly when you think it's going to happen unless you have a time frame on evaluating the bottom on ETH in your mind. And I think ETH was around 4,100 when I was buying BM&R, closer to 45, 44. I mean, I messed up my entry. My entry was at 49. I was down 17% of that. And then I started buying a lot more at 40 and 42. That's when ETH was at 4,000. So it really just becomes a question of where does ETH go. Bitcoin still 125.2. 125.2. Rich Tech Robotics, that one moved last week. It is, wow, up another 10% today. My goodness. That one not slowing down. Let me look at the heat map, and then we'll get to the stock draft. Heat map, it's kind of mixed. Obviously, you have AMD, Microsoft, and Oracle that are green. Google is kind of up. Meta's red. I still don't know exactly why Meta's red. but it's red. Amazon's flat. Tesla's hyped up on this announcement they're going to put out tomorrow, which I have no idea what it's going to be. Micron's up today. Intel's up. Arista's up. IBM's up a little bit. And then financials and insurance is down. Stock draft. Let's see what we got. Oh boy, folks. We are now well in first place. Shout out to AMD. Shout out to AMD. We're up 42% on the portfolio, even with a 32% Duolingo decline. Matt's at 38%. Matt's still there. He's 4% away. And any decline in my portfolio and any upswing in his portfolio could get there. But we are starting to get into the 40s, which is really nice. Tanner's at 25. Trade Desk is his loser. Steve's at 8. And then Chris is at 12.6. Chris is also coming back. Novo, which Chris is actually bullish on in real life. That one's down 18%. That one is starting to come back as well. Matt says you think you're better than me. Dude, honestly, AMD and Nebius is because of you guys. If you were on that stock draft episode, if you haven't watched it, just Google or just YouTube Amit stock draft 2025. AMD and Nebius was literally you guys spamming it in the chat. I knew nothing about Nebius. AMD, I mean, I know AMD, but I wasn't the most bullish on it. But after Palantir Hood and Tesla, I was like, all right, AMD. If we got to get into semiconductors, let's do AMD. And then Nebius, massive winner, 162%. So in real life, a lot of people that allocated to a Nebius and AMD done very well. Very well. By the way, Rocket Lab continuing its all-time highs, just under 58. It's at 56.20 right here. That's great. Nike CEO's on CNBC. He's getting interviewed about their turnaround plan. Nike right there, 71.33. That's down. Oh, CRML. So Trump is thinking of taking a stake in these guys. That's up 80%. We found that out Friday after hours. So if you, I mean, like he's developing a VC fund for the United States. It looks like Intel, Lithium America's company, and now CRML. So if you're into different rare earth mineral companies, it looks like he's getting a boost. Paul Tudor Jones was on CNBC this morning as well. I'll try to get some headlines. It looks like he said we are seeing the dot-com bubble. Tom Lee was on as well. We didn't watch that yet. Let's go to him and let's just get his quick thoughts on what's going on in the market as well.
We know there's a tremendous CapEx tailwind from AI. And the second is that the Fed's been on hold for 9 months, and it's kept the ISM below 50 for now 31 months. And the Fed's dovish. So that's the rest of the economy getting basically a lifeline. Those are going to be powerful tailwinds that even a government shutdown doesn't really change the story around. And now that we're in the seasonally strong fourth quarter, and valuations, I just don't think are that demanding because, NVIDIA is still at 26 times earnings. I mean, I think stocks still have a lot of upside into year end.
All right, really quick. You're talking about ISM manufacturing, right? Still in contraction. You're saying the Federal Reserve rate cuts, if we stay on this path, that boost the manufacturing sector? Is that the point you're trying to get to?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So the manufacturing sector has been cautious for 31 months, the longest stretch below 50 in history. And, that's business confidence. It's highly correlated with earnings growth. So I think once that moves above 50, that means we're back in expansion mode, and it's good for financials and small caps, and the tech trade continues. So I think it's a broad-based rally.
I think a lot of people think it would be good for transports, energy prices. I think, as you mentioned, it would have impacts across the board if we see a boost in U.S. manufacturing. Okay, I want to get to your word of the day. It's dovish. Now, this is interesting. Your word's dovish, and you're dovish because the Fed didn't get the jobs report and might not get other reports. Why are you dovish, or you think the Fed's dovish, despite that critical information?
Well, the Fed has, I think, on balance, has to be more dovish than what they said they would be last month, because a government shutdown, as you know, disrupts economic activity. So even though they're not getting reports, there's also a standstill in GDP, and the government is a very large share of GDP. On top of that, it causes confidence to be weaker. A shutdown makes people nervous, and so the Fed will have to be even more dovish, and I think that's why stocks can rally even more than they have already.
All right, you're also looking.
So, I mean, you got Tom Lee basically making the argument that says, hey, the lack of jobs reports, although the markets hate uncertainty, the lack of job reports, which we're still not getting because the government is still shut down, means that the Fed has to assume the worst case scenario. They have to assume the labor market's doing worse, which is essentially meaning that they're more open to cuts. I mean, dude, the types of tailwinds that are starting to intersect all one by one into this kind of broader bull argument for the market is becoming just more and more explicit. You've got the AI CapEx tailwind, which NVIDIA and OpenAI deal last week, and now OpenAI and AMD deal this week. Goes to show you what's going on. You've got the Fed easing, with even the government shutdown means they're likely going to be more cautious, which means they're likely more to ease, which is bullish long term. And then you've got the stat that I gave you guys this morning that Goldman Sachs says money market inflows have actually outpaced stock market inflow. Like, I saw that stat and I was like, what? More people are putting money on the sidelines versus the markets, even though markets are going at all-time highs. And that's actually very bullish because it means that we are not in peak euphoria. Now, I know that Oklo looks like peak euphoria, but at the end of the day, Oklo is a $20 billion company. If Oklo goes to zero, that does not affect the broader market. And by the way, Oklo is not going to zero, in my opinion, because there's too much demand for energy. So maybe it's not going to stay at 140, but it's not going to zero. It's not like Peloton that was at 150 and goes to $2. Like that is not the type of market I think that we're in. Are there some pockets of froth? 100%. Is 26 times earnings for the S&P the new normal? It's hard to say, but if earnings growth continues to advance at double digits, which it's done for 2 quarters in a row, if that happens in the next 2 weeks and we see that for Q3, there's only 5,700 stocks in the market. There's only 30 to 50 of them that actually matter. Those names are going to keep getting a bid, especially if they can put up the earnings growth, which is why I think the bulls have a way to still make the argument towards the end of the year that it can continue to do well. So you're starting to see a lot of momentum right there. Are we considering the possibility of a Tesla releasing a GPU? People were thinking about that yesterday. Archer, again, off those rumors, is getting some love. Let me play the Archer video that came out yesterday. I really don't understand why people are thinking there's a collaboration right here with Tesla. I'll show you guys the video and see what you guys think. But the video, all it did was show a summit that they're at. So they're at a summit, or they're I think this is a promo for a summit they're going to, and it's like America Industrial Summit. It's called the UP Summit, a UP.summit. And so, as you can see in this video, boom, there's the Tesla Optimus 3. Just because you see a Tesla Optimus in the video, that doesn't mean that Tesla's buying Archer. Like, that was the argument that people were making yesterday. And I'm like, and I think that's why Archer's up 9%. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it's because they're presenting at the summit and people are bullish, but I don't think at a summit where you're showing American industrialism, that's the reason for why Archer's going higher. But nonetheless, Archer's up 9%, Tesla right there up 3%. And we're going to see tomorrow what Tesla produces. SoFi right there up 4%. Okay, so what's going on with SoFi? SoFi and BitGo. Seems like they have a crypto partnership. This wasn't explicitly announced in any of the investor relations. But BitGo, which is a crypto company, is the leading digital asset wallet solution since 2013. And on their website, they have a partnership with SoFi Invest. So I think that is potentially why SoFi is getting a move up 4.5%. If you sold puts on SoFi last week, like I did, or if you bought shares, you're getting some momentum. But I think realistically, it's got to break above 29 for this to be a bit more legit in terms of a breakout. But you got SoFi right there at 26.40. That's up 4%. It might not be because of that BitGo partnership. It might be because of something else. Might just be in general because the market's like there was no reason to take SoFi down to 25, but that is up 5%. I think the Tesla releases drones. I mean, let's do a poll right here in the chat while people are thinking. I think it's a new car. I think it's kind of simple. It's a new car. 84% say you're not buying AMD today. 84% of people said they're not buying AMD. Tesla announcement, drones, Archer partnership, new car, something else. And when I mean new car, I mean new affordable model. What do we think? What do we think? I don't think Tesla's getting into the eVTOL business. I don't. Maybe they are, but I don't think Elon at this moment is concerned about that. Elon did release a video of what's his name? Optimus learning Kung Fu over the weekend. So they are trying to get the market to understand the robotics story is very real. But it looks like there's something else that's going to be happening tomorrow. NVIDIA right there, that's still down. Palantir 180, Hoodie trying to recover back to 147.50. It looks like everyone's Hood app is okay, and it's doing all right. Orbs is up today, 11%. Options on Orb just opened up on Friday, so that's really good for that stock. BMNR still holding 61. Not too bad. ASML, wow, 2% on ASML. This thing This is why when, people share their year-to-date percentages, it is very believable. There's a ton of people in the semiconductor investing ecosystem that understood ASML's monopoly essentially on lithography and that bought this shit up like it was no tomorrow when it was at 650, 700, 800. Just like a lot of us that love Robinhood bought it up when it was at 40, 50, and we thought it was stupid that it was down. I mean, like, it's SoFi, so many of you bought this from 7 to 15, knowing that eventually the market would catch up. And you're seeing that now. IREN, I mean, this one's just been a retail gem. 56.93, that's up 14%. Intel, that's up another 3%. GameStop's up a little bit. Nubank's slightly down. And then Nvidia slightly down. I mean, you're seeing all sectors of this market start to participate, except financials, taking a little bit of a breather today. XLF is down. Fear and Greed Index is 56 over 100. We were there last week at 53. Right now, we're at 56. I'm going to see if I can get the Paul Tudor Jones clips and see what he has to say. I mean, I saw the headline around 1999, so maybe he's a little cautious of what's going on in the broader markets. But we'll see what he thinks. Pounter at their 179 as well. EOSC, again, energy, that's up 20%. A lot of these energy names, I don't know how real some of them are. I mean, I know they're getting a bid. Like the fact that Bloom Energy, which is a little bit more sophisticated than some of the other names, is not pumping is kind of wild. But I think this is a sector that we just can't ignore in 2026. We really can't ignore. Okay, so what did he say? My guess is that I think all ingredients are in place for some kind of a blow-off. History rhymes a lot, so I would think some version of it is going to happen again. If anything, now is so much more potentially explosive than 1999. Wow. Every big hedge fund executive has come out, or at least I shouldn't say every one of them, but a decent chunk of them over the past couple of weeks. And they've said, we think we're setting up for a massive melt up, but then a massive blow off the top rally that ends in a bubble being popped. And I kind of think that's bullish because as smart as those guys are, at the end of the day, you do need people to be bearish and you do need people to doubt it. And when you get deals like what we got with AMD and OpenAI today, I'm not saying those hedge fund guys don't know what they're talking about, but it just like the reality of the raw amount of dollars into this deal, which inevitably will get a multiple by the market because the market needs to put their money somewhere, especially as rates come down. That is going to lead to potentially this bull market continuing for some time, which makes sense to me, at least based on all the data that we're seeing. S&P at 670, AMD 27, AMD 27.10, 209, SoFi 5.4% of the day. If we can break 27, that would be very, very nice to see. Joby, that's up 3%. Archer's up a little bit more. Oscar, I mean, hit 22 today, 21.93. Congrats to anyone who's an Oscar, another big retail name that, again, one could argue Oscar at $20 is super cheap compared to a lot of these growth stocks, just given their financials. So Oscar to me is not hype at all. Lemonade right here, that's down 1.4%. UNH obviously is not hype. UNH right there at 360. That's up from 230 over the past month. So that one also not doing bad. Doug says, Amit, I will say some of those guys don't know what they're talking about. Have you seen the margins? They are expanding. Yeah, and that's the other thing around the AMD, or not just AMD, but the AI trade in general. Like margins are going up. When margins are going up, net income goes up. When net income goes up, you have a better chance at getting a higher multiple. And I mean, look, in 2 weeks, we're going to get the results. In 2 weeks, we will see what Q3 looks like. If it continues to be as strong as Q2 and margins go higher, I just don't think that many people are going to be afraid of stuffing their money somewhere safe. They're going to want to take a little bit more risk, especially because rate cuts in October coincide with earnings. October 29th is when you have the FOMC meeting. That's probably exactly when you're going to get most of the tech earnings, around that last 2 weeks of October, which is going to matter. What do you make of the new Japan prime minister? Okay, so I have not heard enough about her. All I know, she's the first woman prime minister, and she's super pro-stimulus, which to me means money printer gets turned on in Japan. I'm not super educated about Japan. I'm trying to learn a lot more about it. A couple things on Japan. They're lifting exporters and industrial giants, and they're very incentivized to do that, which is why their inflation is going up, which they're okay with. So inflation pressures are mounting again, but policymakers are under growing pressure to respond, and maybe they don't respond necessarily with just rate hikes, but with more stimulus as well. Now, stimulus would be antithetical to inflation going higher, but they want to keep their economy doing well. So maybe Japan's okay with a little bit more inflation as they weren't for the past couple of years. And then you got the Nikkei, which had almost a 5% day yesterday. That has not happened. Year to date, the Nikkei is up 22%. It is outperforming the S&P 500. It's quite incredible. And you have Japanese investors, a lot of young Japanese investors that are not buying treasuries. They're buying the Nikkei, or they're buying Bitcoin, or they're buying assets that they know in Japan can outperform just the bond market. So look, because the US is lowering rates and Japan is raising rates, I don't think we have a yen carry trade. You get a yen carry trade when both of the countries that are depending on each other's currency for currency swaps are raising rates. That's not what's happening here. Ethereum's still holding above 4,600, trying to go for 47. So I don't think there's a yen carry trade there, but it is something to look at because we definitely have to keep an eye on the Japanese bond market, as it's one of the best treasury markets in the entire world. Amit, I heard from a little birdie, Koreans are buying ETH in mass. Yes. So Tom Lee talked about this the other day in this Token Singapore conference. That Koreans, do we have any Koreans in the chat? Anyone from South Korea? I mean, he said a lot of people in that demographic are buying Ethereum, and you think Ethereum's big in the States now with Tom Lee. I mean, in Korea, it's a whole different level. I'll see if I can get that clip. And that could be something that's also bullish for the advance of that. Oh, wow, we got a bunch of Koreans here. All right, I love it. I love it. Yeah, it looks like Ethereum continues to, not easily slow down there. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Yeah, okay, let's pull this right here.
In a day. Fortunately, BitMine is one of the most liquid stocks today. It trades about $3 billion a day. It trades about as much every day as JP Morgan or Arista Networks or Google. We're really one of the most liquid names. And then I learned that in Korea, we're top 1, 2, or 3 in terms of trading volume. So I think that unless you're going to break into the top 30 as a stock, institutions may not pay attention because institutions want to have volatility, access to hedging through option chains, and BitMine's a top 10 chain. And so if you're not in that zip code, institutions aren't going to pay attention.
I think everything you just described too, though, I think speaks.
Koreans love it. Koreans love it. And that's why you're seeing some momentum. By the way, guys, I just rolled my BitMine. Just rolled it. Somehow got paid $200 to roll it. January 105s. January 105s. 62 on BitMine, up 10% on the day. I'd be okay paying a little bit if I had to roll it to get up to January. The fact that I got paid, this market for options is mad. The only thing we've seen something like this is freaking MicroStrategy. That's the last time I think we've seen anything like this, where the options market was this juicy. And now the options market for MSTR is getting a little boring because, Bitcoin hasn't performed that well in MSTR. Or Bitcoin has done decently, but MSTR just hasn't done that well. But BitMine's the new game in town. Ethereum potentially can go on a trajectory like Bitcoin, hopefully. And, BitMine's leveraged towards it. And that's why you're seeing some momentum right here. If we actually get to 105 by January, bro, if we're at $100 on BitMine, I'll probably keep some shares, but I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell at least 1,000 shares, bro. I'm going to take some profits. I'm going to sell 1,000. I'm going to raise 100 grand of cash going into 2026. I would not mind doing that just as a pure risk management for any weakness in Ethereum next year. But it does not seem like this is slowing down. By the way, that video that I was just playing, Tom Lee also talks about, institutional investors and the names that they care about at the end of the day. And he was speaking on all the S bets of the world. He was just like, dude, he said it without saying it. He said, no one really cares about them. He said, at the end of the day, institutional investors really only care about the leaders in the sector. Here's a little bit of what he was talking about at that time.
Strategy. And in Ethereum, I think there is a lot of room for differentiation because Ethereum, one, it generates a native staking yield, and you can also invest in DeFi or also create payment rails around Ethereum. So I think there's room for more than one. You don't have to just say there's going to be one survivor, but I think executing is really important. I mean, there's a lot of digital asset treasuries out there, and they're not all created equally.
No, they're certainly not. And I think that that's also kind of interesting to see too. It was just announced yesterday, I think, that Strive is announcing plans to buy Semler Scientific, which was trading below NAV. And I think that just kind of speaks, it's interesting because the shares are still also trading at a discount to where even that deal should close. I don't know if that kind of says something about kind of how the market's still getting used to trying to price these things out.
Yes, I think part of it is the digital asset treasury world bridges two worlds. One is crypto, because it invests and buys a token. And so you have to be able to speak the language of the crypto economy. But then the other world that treasuries sit in is public equities. And remember, there's 5,700 stocks out there, 5,700. I mean, like, so just because like a company does something doesn't mean the market cares. If you look at the stock market today, the top 30 most traded stocks are literally the only stocks that Robinhood cares about, or Schwab, or even JP Morgan. You know, like JP Morgan trading probably only cares about 10 stocks, and Goldman's desk only cares about 10 stocks. Institutional investors care about sector exposure, but they always buy the leader. So, you know,
it's a really important point, I think, for us as retail investors to understand. And I'm not trying to be bearish S-bet or anything like that. It's just the broader argument Tom Lee is making is that you have to be the winner in your sector to get liquidity and inflows at the level that a BMNR is getting. And that's why there's a lot of Bitcoin treasuries, but MicroStrategy is the one that continues to get all the momentum. There's a ton more ETH treasuries. BMNR objectively is the one that is winning. Bitmine right there, 61.38. And what he says about JP Morgan, Robinhood, Goldman Sachs only caring about a couple companies, he's right, dude. Like there's only 30 to 50 companies that, and you know, he went as far as saying JP Morgan only cares about 10 of those companies that are going to get the bulk of the trading volumes. Every time I show you guys the top 20 stocks traded in the options market on the market close, most of them are the same names: NVIDIA, Tesla, Palantir, Apple, Amazon, MicroStrategy, Hood, SoFi, Meta. You know, you get the open doors slipping in there as they've got momentum. Intel slips in there, but the core names are the core names. And that's also why those names get a multiple, because they constantly have a bid, which I think we cannot deny. So if Bitmine's becoming one of those core names, which it's trading 2.5 billion a day in volumes, that's bullish. It's very, very, very bullish. Ethereum still moving, getting some love, 46.74. Bitcoin just at 125 on the day. Again, congratulations if you are heavy in AMD. Today is your day. Today is your day. You deserve it. This is a big one. AMD, even a close above 200 would be very, very bullish, and it looks like it's setting up the trajectory for AMD to do very well over the coming years. I mean, it's quite incredible. Azure, thanks for the super chat. I'm up 350% on my AMD calls expiring in January 2026. Would I sell? Yeah. I mean, look, if you have calls expiring in January, you're getting to the point where theta decay is going to start to hit. You're about 90 days away. That's when I think 60 days is when theta decay starts to really begin to pile in to those call options. Now, if you're deep in the money, you're okay. And you can kind of wait longer, but you know, it's not crazy to start thinking of taking some chips off the table. It seems like a lot of people are doing that today. Bob, thank you for the super chat. Yo, Amit, thanks for everything you do. You really got me into investing today. I went from 90K to 280K. Now it's time to de-risk. Congrats to everyone. Love from Germany. 90 to 280 in a day. I'm assuming, Bob, that happened because of AMD. So congratulations, dude. And congrats on the profits. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Google announces new YouTube activation partner program to enhance collaborations. Okay, looks like YouTube is going to try to become a bit more friendly with the collaboration side for creators. I think that's going to basically allow two creators to stream a video at once on their channels, maybe like through YouTube with like your username inside of each other's videos, something like that. Tanner was actually telling me about that last week. So that might be something YouTube is going for. Yeah, I don't know exactly what that means, Chris, but it might be something around better collaboration. You can already do that through StreamYard, but maybe YouTube's doing something a little bit more natively for that. By the way, speaking of YouTube, shout out to our boy Steve. 1,300 of you joined the live stream on Saturday night. It was quite incredible. He called me last night, and he was really, really grateful for the people that showed up. And yeah, he's planning to stream a couple times a week now, and I think a lot of you guys enjoyed it. And Steve has an amazing personality. He's been contributing on my channel and Tanner's channel for the past 2 years. So I think he's built up a lot of goodwill with people. And it was fun. It was a fun night. Broke out a little bit of the Jaeger, broke out a little bit of the Jack Daniels. We had a good time, told some stories. I did not wake up hungover, by the way. The amount of messages they're like, oh, yo, are you? Dude, there are people from across the world that were DMing me on Twitter. They're like, bro, I watched last night. Are you okay? Like, are you good? I'm like, dude, I'm not that much of a lightweight to the point where I can't handle 3 shots. Now, granted, I woke up and the first thing I did was get some coffee and Tylenol. But that doesn't mean you're hungover. That just means, you need a little bit of the tism to start your morning. That's all it means. So that's not a hungover argument, but it was fun. It was fun. AppLovin down 5%. Who's buying the dip on AppLovin? I still don't know enough about this company. I actually want to do a deep dive on them. By the way, thank you everyone who subscribed to the deep dives. We passed 6,000 subscribers on the newsletter. I'll put it right here in the chat for those that want to check it out. First deep dive's coming out October 15th. We're going to do 1 every 2 weeks, so 2 a month. I'm going to try to commit myself to really doing the best to put out some good work. But deeply, deeply appreciate the people that subscribed, and it will be free, no paywall. We'll try to get some new companies every single month and really dive into them. AppLovin right there, 650. That's down 4. I don't know why that's down 4, but it was up at like 750 last week, so it's giving back some of the gains. That's okay. Robinhood right here, 147.90. Folks, we got some updates on Robinhood as well. Vlad's meeting with royalty. So look at this. Today I met with Vlad Tenev, CEO of President of Robinhood, a global financial services company. The UAE continues to enhance its investment ecosystem as a leading global hub for financial services. Dubai has become a preferred destination for global innovation in fintech. Our ambition is to remain at the forefront. If you guys remember, I broke some news 2 months ago about Robinhood applying for a financial broker's license in none other than Dubai. So this is starting to, I don't talk about it too much because, there hasn't been that many updates, but the fact that Vlad, I don't know when this happened. I think it was over the weekend. Vlad went to Dubai to meet with these guys. Bullish. He's coming around the world. And then not only did Vlad meet with him, Alex Chris, PayPal CEO, met with royalty in the UAE. I don't know what to make of that. Maybe PayPal's getting ready to bring some innovation across the Middle East, but you got PayPal CEO and Robinhood CEO both working in the Middle East, and maybe some more product expansion. PayPal, I think, is already available in the Middle East, if I'm not wrong, but Robinhood is not, because PayPal is like international with money transfers. But it looks like they're starting to meet a lot more people. Robinhood right there, 147.94. SoFi, 26.21. AppLovin still down 5%. Ethereum, 46.61. And then BMNR, 61.20. 61.20. That's a hangover. It's not a hangover, bro. Just because you take a little bit of Tylenol and have some coffee, it's not a hangover. In what world is that a hangover? That's just getting ready for the morning, bro. That's different. To be fair, I don't drink, dude. So when I do drink, it is a little aggressive on the body, but it is what it is. I'm just not that big of a drinker. Okay, let's see what other updates we have right here. We still have some OpenAI AMD updates. Let me pull this up right here and see if we can get a little bit more analysis, specifically in the context of electricity and fulfilling demand.
You had previously the announcement with NVIDIA for about 10 gigawatts of capacity. You now got AMD with 6 gigawatts of capacity. Clearly in our view, OpenAI is trying to just get access to the capacity, and the capacity itself is a competitive advantage. So they're moving really fast. They're securing deals. They had a deal with Broadcom again that they announced on the earnings call. Mm-hmm. So OpenAI is making some moves here.
2 schools of thought on this. One is, wow, this just shows the total addressable market is going to be way bigger than anybody anticipated. OpenAI is pulling a page out of Amazon's playbook and then one-upping them on that by basically saying, we're going to grow and grow and grow and not worry about profitability. Right. The other school of thought is, hang on a second, they're promising to spend a whole lot more than they have or that they can possibly have. Which school do you fall down?
And it's interesting in the way that they're going about this. And what was notable in the announcement this morning with AMD is issuing warrants to OpenAI. Presumably, and there's a call at 8 o'clock where AMD is going to talk about this, but presumably there's some give back. They didn't give the warrants away for free. So, one way you can look at it is the warrants are helping to finance this. In the case of NVIDIA, week before last, NVIDIA made a $100 billion investment into OpenAI.
Right, in cash.
Yeah, in cash. So
this is, you think, the same sort of deal, but AMD doesn't necessarily have the cash to do this?
Perhaps. And again, I'm sure we're going to find out about that at 8 o'clock when they have.
OpenAI definitely doesn't have the cash, but they will get better financing deals if they're able to use these deals as leverage with the banks. And I think that's the reason they're getting these deals. We got Kevin Hasset on. Let's get an update on this government shutdown and what Trump's approach might be as we get into day 5 of the shutdown.
We'll negotiate. But the bottom line is right now we just want a clean, continuing resolution. And any government worker that loses their job because of rifts after another failed attempt to negotiate is going to be really there because the Democrats are being intransigent. And don't forget, Joe, that this is the 3rd time since President Trump was in office that they've decided to shut the government down. So they've got Trump derangement syndrome. They don't really know how to govern when he's in the White House, and they're just flailing about. And this is really the worst of the 3. They have absolutely no leverage whatsoever. One would expect that they would come, and they would come soon to the table, but they keep not doing it. Today the Senate opens its gavel, I think around 3 o'clock. I expect there'll be a team of people in the Oval with the president hoping that we're going to get the government to stop being shut down. But if not, then I would guess that team in the Oval is going to start taking sharp measures.
The $1.5 trillion that they'd like to add during a reconciliation or during a CR.
All right. So same approach by the White House. There was a headline this morning that Trump is going to be looking into excessive layoffs today if we can't get a deal as leverage for getting the Democrats to get on board. Don't know if he's actually going to do that. We'll see if that ends up happening this week. But as of now, that is the approach from the Republican side. There was a vote on Wednesday. That vote failed again. So it looks like they'll have another vote later this week. And maybe that ends up helping. Tesla right there, 445. That's up 3.5. What did you guys say on the poll? What did we think Tesla is going to be announcing? 45% say a new car. Okay, I agree. 45% say a new car. Yeah, I think. I really don't think the Archer thing is happening. If it is, Archer is probably going to get a lot of love. I mean, is it worth taking a spec play on Archer? It would if I thought there was any legitimacy to it. Just because they put Optimus in a video does not to me signal there's like a collaboration. Now, if there is, Archer is going to really get some fun, but I don't think that's the case. I think the second video Tesla posted is a little bit more active around like what the thing will be, and it looks like it'll be a car. Mike is bad again. Mike, yes, we're bad. Yes. Okay, hold on. Let me fix it. Let's go to this and we'll be right back.
The coming week and everything. There's a lot going on politically around the world that's moving markets that, could be having an impact on treasuries. We're seeing higher yields today. And also, Carl, just finally point out what's working amid all of this. Bitcoin, record high, gold, record high. Those two continue to climb, whether it's safety, whether it's uncertainty, whether it's the fiscal situations around the globe, and just the political questions always result in more spending, right? Japan, we're talking about more fiscal stimulus. The US, what's going to happen with the shutdown? It's all about spending. Gold goes up, Bitcoin goes up.
Yeah, remember those forecasts for gold.
Okay, Mike should be better. Guys, gold hit 3,900 yesterday, and it is not slowing down. Oh, wow. We are a little bit away from 4,000, folks. We are a little bit away from 4,000. Is anyone scared of what we're seeing with gold at all? Is anyone kind of just like, I don't know, is gold signaling, or is it more so just like it is a everything rally, gold, Bitcoin, equities? Or is there something a little deeper? I don't know. Where's the copper miners today? They're up 1%. Silver futures, are we above 47? We're at 48.47. Goodness, dude. Yeah, it's a hedge against the dollar drop, right? It's at the end of the day, Dixie is up a little bit, but it's still down 10% for the year. It is crazy that gold, yes, gold just hit 3,000 a bit ago. Dude, gold from 2010 to 2022 was up double, which compared to like what has actually happened in the stock market is a horrible return. In the past 2 years, gold went from 2,000 to 4,000, aka doubling. So it took 10 years to double from 2010. Now it doubled in 2 years. It is just remarkable seeing the level of excitement that people have potentially in gold as a hedge. Now, the 10-year, this should be bearish for the 10-year, but the 10-year is not spiking up to the levels that we saw back in April. So you still do have treasury demand. And with rates coming down, that is this is why rates have to come down, because you're not going to incentivize people to buy this damn 10-year unless you get rates to come down. They need to lock in their gains now or at the rate cut, which means you need to give them a reason. And I mean, it might end up being that the return they can get is going to go down, so they need to buy now. So it's like it kind of feels programmatic that rates have to be cut, treasuries have to be bought, and as a result, equities have to get the momentum from rates coming down, because again, the cost of capital goes down, so there's more money to spend. I mean, just to take a basic example of margin spending, by the way, grab right there, up 2%. If you use margin and your cost to borrow was 6%, and that cost goes down to 5.5%, you have extra capital to do things with, which means you got to put it somewhere. And if it's not equities, it's got to be something that can get you a return to probably pay off that margin, which likely is gold, Bitcoin, something that is a hard asset. Cash ultimately, as DJ says right there, becomes toxic. And that's another thing I think the bears are not thinking about, dude. Like, okay, let's do this question. What is your best bear case in a sentence? What is your best bear case? It's Diwali season. India's pumping gold. Yeah, that might be the reason. But what is your best bear case? Even if you're a big bear, I mean a big bull. My bear case is earnings suck. If earnings growth does not deliver minimum double digits, yeah, we've got an issue. So objectively, if we have bad, I really don't think it's a shutdown. I don't think it's interest rates. I don't think it's the labor market. The labor market like poses a threat, I think, long term, because obviously AI taking away jobs is not good. But I think in the short term, this bull market ends real quick if earnings is not there. And I think earnings is going to be there. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out in 2 weeks. But if as long as earnings is there, I mean, there shouldn't be some massive scary bear case. By the way, fourth quarter of the year on average is up 5%. So you've got the seasonal tailwind for you in Q4 if rate cuts comply as well. Okay, China, Taiwan is always the bear case. I don't know if that happens in 3 months. The bear case is if the stock market goes down. That's fair. The thing nobody has on their bingo card. That is true. I guess we're trying to figure out what could be that thing on our bingo card. Yeah, dude, everyone is saying World War III or China, Taiwan. So no one's giving me like a super kind of hardcore short-term argument that we could see. Consumers get so behind on rent. Okay, so this is I forgot to mention this. That's a hell of a point. Look, delinquencies are going up. Consumers are missing credit card payments and auto payments in particular in mass. Now, again, we've done a lot of analysis on this channel of how there's two different types of consumers in the economy. Chris posted a great chart right here about that transition into delinquency by loan type. And as you can see, student loans in particular are the ones that are beginning to ramp up the most. Auto loans and credit cards are up there. So you have, there was another stat I saw over the weekend. Let me pull this up. It was an updated stat by Goldman over how much spending the top 10% are responsible for. High-income Americans now account for over half of all consumer spending, up from less than 1/3 in 1990. I think high income is like above $450,000 a year. Now account for half of consumer spending. So this is why the consumer bear case is at least somewhat hedged by the market going up. So people that have more money are able to keep the spending going on, which keeps the economy afloat. But if that goes away, aka the market goes down and then spending goes down and then the lower half of the consumers can't continue to keep spending, then you have a full-on recession, which is a very valid bear case. Very, very valid bear case. But we got to see if that one actually would play out. And again, the thing that hedges that bear case is that wealthier people that are appreciating their assets, they are embracing the bull market. By the way, grab right there, 630. And if they're embracing the bull market, by allocating capital to an AMD or to an NVIDIA. AMD, by the way, back to 213. Look at that. AMD, 205, it bounced. Maybe we still get 220 to close the day. 205, it bounced. If you're someone who has a bit more money and you're saying, oh, I like this AMD OpenAI deal, I'm buying into this, that is more money that's supporting this bull market. And AMD needs to show the results and OpenAI needs to show the results. But if you get the result, and in 2 weeks, we will see if we get the results, that is what I think continues this momentum, which hopefully allows it to continue being a strong bull market. The Supreme Court reverses tariffs. That could be a bear case. I don't think the Supreme Court would do that. That'd be very weird. By the way, they're not going to talk about it until January. So they delayed the decision until January. So we won't know for a couple months if they do that. Luis says, I got the Robinhood Solid Gold card. I love it. A lot more people are getting that gold card. Vlad said 450,000 got it last week, which is good. The bull market ends if a bit decides to stop streaming. Dude, how could you not? This, as a content creator, you know, the tailwind that I have for my brand is that I get to cover something that is one of the most exciting things in the world. You get to cover the technological revolution that is artificial intelligence and all the different dynamics and nuances that are part of that. I mean, that is just exciting as a creator. And it's just really cool. It's really cool. I mean, again, I woke up at 6:54, check my phone. Notification comes out at 6:50 from the Wall Street Journal. At 6:57, I wake up, I get on my computer, I put out this tweet. And by the way, you know how I was able to put out this tweet? Just guess. Someone guess how I was able to put out this tweet. Because it goes full circle. It goes full circle. I copy and pasted the Wall Street Journal article into Grok, and I said, summarize this shit so I can understand it, because I got to get the news out, because I want to be the first to break this news, because I happened to wake up 4 minutes after the news broke. And I don't want to have to read the article. Tell me the right points. And as a result of being faster and efficient based on AI helping me understand this content, this post was one of the first posts out there and got 400,000 views. Like, that is a very simple example of how my personal productivity was increased because of AI. And my sleeping schedule. That got me to wake up on time, because if I woke up at like 7:30, the news would have been old. So it's like, it is one of those things where, like, now imagine that applied to enterprises that are managing, you know, massive amounts of data in all these different secure, complex ways, doing hundreds of billions of dollars of business. Like just the accelerant it should be for the broader market and for productivity should be legit. No, I didn't plagiarize. I put it there to summarize, and then I could write up my own bullet points of what it was about, because I didn't have time to read the whole article. So I just copy and pasted it, and I said, hey, tell me the most important points of this article. It told it to me, and then I wrote up my tweet. That, dude, that stuff is really important. And like, before AI, I would have actually had to read the article, try to understand all the nuances. Like, no, I'm like, Grok, just tell me what matters. Don't give me the opinions. Don't give me the spin that the article is trying to do. I just want to know what's the data. And if you read my tweet, it has no opinions towards it. My tweet is just objectively, here's the deal. Here's the tranches. Here's the share price that AMD will be able to give OpenAI for. And here are the amount of gigawatts that they're committing to. So I don't think this slows down, dude. I don't think this productivity boom would necessarily slow down. Let's get a little bit more of an update on the OpenAI AMD partnership from here.
Is so much hand-wringing about circular revenue and vendor financing on the NVIDIA deal, but is it more interesting now that you could take that money and spend it elsewhere?
No, I think it's very interesting, and I've seen some stuff out there in the ethers talking about the potential that maybe they took some NVIDIA money, hypothetically, and could have purchased AMD GPUs. I think that's provocative, probably not the exact case, but it's technically feasible, particularly after what we saw Jensen talk about on a recent podcast last week.
Obviously, this is a big vote of confidence in the AMD story when it comes to being at the center of all of this. Is the technology that AMD, the chips, do they have the same capabilities as NVIDIA? Are they as advanced?
So I take this as OpenAI answering that question today. And what OpenAI is saying is a definitive yes. And it's very important to line up the right year, right? Second half 2026, AMD has what they call a scale up solution where more GPUs can be addressed. And that lines up with directly with NVIDIA's version of that. And it is the first time that AMD has had this type of architecture. But I think OpenAI spoke for it today.
what do you think? We're actually, Jim's going to have Jensen on his club meeting tomorrow. What do you think NVIDIA says in response to this?
I think they're going to say this is a proof point that we can't get enough GPU compute performance. And I think he'll also say competition is good. I mean, what else can he say at this juncture? He might, I mean, it was an interesting week, right, with $100 billion invested, and then 10 days later, you have the AMD piece hit. So, yeah, he will get some challenging questions for sure.
I mean, AMD is being completely re-rated now, up 29%.
Right.
So then how should you look at the valuation going forward if you're comparing it to an NVIDIA?
So if you want to look at the entire value of the deal, which by 2030 could be around $100 billion, which, by the way, I think that's conservative. I think $120 billion, and let's say 50% gross margin, worst case, that's what you should be re-rating AMD on. But today is a definitive day for them that they are a player in this market, and I think they are being rewarded. And even with the uptick at, let's say, 29% right now, it still appears like it has a lot of room to grow. And the full warrants come into play at a $600 valuation, and that's the final tranche. And what we haven't seen is the schedule of how much does OpenAI get based on a certain share price and how many GPUs trade hands. We have the 1 gigawatt deal that is in the tens of billions that is locked in so far.
Right. We're still trying to wrestle with these numbers and make them all make sense. Patrick, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for.
It's pretty incredible, dude. That $600 tranche for AMD is them telling investors, dude, there's another 3x in this stock, and OpenAI doesn't get paid unless we 3x the stock. I mean, that's so bullish for AMD investors because the shareholder incentives are so aligned. They're like, hey, OpenAI's got to build out these data centers. We're not giving them a single share, or we're not at least going to give them the majority of the shares that they want to get to own 10% of us unless they do this for us. And the last tranche is at 600. Stock's at 200. It needs to go from 200 to 600 for OpenAI to really get paid. I mean, again, that just to me is very, very strong for shareholders, and it likely signals how much confidence that OpenAI or that OpenAI and AMD both have. Grab right there, 630. I'll check resistance at 631. Again, Grab was at 660 a couple weeks ago. I bought a lot of Grab below 590 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I'm loaded up, dude. I will buy more shares if we get back below 6. If we're not going back below 6, I'm not buying more shares. 631 has like 20,000 shares. So not too much resistance. 632 has 65,000 shares. But we were just at the 660s. Oh, by the way, Grab got an upgrade to $7 from a company in Asia. Someone sent me their equity report yesterday. It was the company is called CGS International. Some of you guys in Asia might know them. CGS International. They upgraded. They said, after our commentary with management, we feel much more confident about Grab's financial services businesses. We believe it'll break even by end of 2026, upgrading them to 7. And they're basically thinking adjusted EBITDA will grow 14% quarter over quarter. So you do have an upgrade from some of the Asian investment houses on Grab. PayPal up 3%. PayPal getting some green. So you're getting some love on PayPal right there. Alpha right there is up 2%. Enphase is up 3%. And then Microsoft is up 1.2%. Amit, are you buying Amazon today? I don't know. Amazon's weird, bro. It's weird. There's this like feeling I have that Amazon might not end up performing by end of year if Anthropic and AWS don't really give us what we're looking for. Also, I mean, look, at the end of the day, Azure and GCP are scaling up, and that's not a bear case for Amazon, but it's definitely a narrative that the stock needs to deal with. So I'm in it. I have 100 shares. I think we need a really juicy dip, like at least to 205 to get very excited to buy more. But so far, we just have those 100 shares. I don't know. We got to see. We got to see. Call Jose to talk about AMD. No, Jose is at Arizona today. He's at some conference. Well, it would be great if we could call him today. He must be freaking happy, bro. He must be freaking happy. AMD is the second largest position underneath NVIDIA. So he's got to be happy. There is a new Palantir partnership today by OneMed. OneMed seems like they are a healthcare AI company. Palantir's AIP helps us revolutionize our ability to deliver high-quality, regulatory compliant data at remarkable speed. So they announced a partnership today with Palantir. Palantir up 4%, but nice to see more healthcare partnerships. Iran, Bitfarms, all these guys. Again, I have a little bit of Iran. I've still not really developed enough conviction to go balls to the wall and establish real positions in these guys. But more and more every day when you see deals like this, it makes you think this is not slowing down. It really makes you think it's not slowing down. Nebius as well, dude. Nebius, what a stock, dude. What a freaking stock. 130. If they get another Microsoft $20 billion deal from a different hyperscaler, it looks like that one's not slowing down either. Robinhood shouldn't be down for people. And again, if it's still down, let me know. Some people were saying IBKR is still being weird. Robinhood seems fine for me. I know it was a little tough in the morning. Is Meta, are we still above 700 on Meta? 705. Okay, cool. A little bit of move on Meta. Sachin says, Amit, Amazon is the best enterprise sales team and still the largest market shareholder. They have Zoox, some autonomous pixie dust, and they have one of the best LMs, if not the hottest, and their e-com business. I agree with all of that. My concern is about the narrative on the stock. Like holding Amazon for the next decade is like a no-brainer, right? And from that perspective, if I was buying Amazon, then yes. But kind of buying Amazon more so on the concept of it's gonna bounce with the rest of the market because it hasn't bounced yet. And I'm looking for what's the narrative that takes it up there. But the only thing I can think of is AWS reacceleration. I don't know if we see that by end of year. Hive, that's up 22%. Another data center play. I've not looked deep into this. They were a crypto company, now becoming more AI HPC. I mean, again, more of these names getting some love. But if anyone's asking, hey, are you buying Amazon for the long term? Like, yeah. I mean, if it's Amazon for the next 10 years, I don't get scared at 218 or 220 or 230 or 200. It's 10 years from now, Amazon's likely a much bigger business. Apple right there, slightly down on the day. Apple still up year to date a little bit. Is it Apple? Apple's up 5%. So this one still potentially has some juice. It's up 40% from the absolute lows this year. How about Quantum today? What's going on with Quantum? D-Wave is green, 2%. That's all-time highs. IONQ, again, I don't understand Quantum as much as other people. That's up 4%. Rigetti continues to hold on to the high 30s. I don't get Quantum. I haven't done the research to understand it. But these stocks are the best performing stocks in the market. And so there might be something that the broader market is seeing in those names. Copen broke 350 as well. Yup, that was green. A lot of the Jones stocks also getting some momentum. I think we have the Tudor Jones clip. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick right here. Yeah, okay, so this is the clip where he's talking about 1999-ish. Let's pull that up here.
Reminds him of 1999. Take a listen.
Feels exactly like 1999. I don't know whether we'll actually replay it exactly, but I think all the ingredients are in place. And certainly from a trading standpoint, you have to position yourself like it's October 99. I don't see why you would do anything but that. And remember, the NASDAQ doubled between the first week of October 99 and March of 2000. So if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably not a chicken, right?
Joining us with his outlook this morning, Renaissance Macro Research Chairman Jeff DeGraff. Jeff, welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Carl. Thank you.
We've seen a lot of, charts trying to draw analogs to that era, but I wonder if you were surprised at how explicit Paul was today.
I mean, it was a refreshing reminder that it was a double in about a 6-month period of time, right? So I think what it really belies, and something that we certainly take to heart with our clients here at RenMac, is look, you stay with the trends until they tell you differently. And there are some fissures that we see that I have some concerns about, but I think net, I'd say 65-70% is certainly more bullish than bearish at this point.
Right, Neil.
They are today about artificial intelligence, for example, is every experiment gets funded. Every company gets funded.
Sorry, I was muted. Basically what I was saying is Jeff Bezos over the weekend also spoke at an Italian tech conference, and he said, hey, even though it's a little bit of an industrial bubble with AI, because not everything's going to work out, is going to change every part of our life.
They are today about artificial intelligence, for example, is every experiment gets funded. Every company gets funded. The good ideas and the bad ideas. And investors have a hard time in the middle of this excitement distinguishing between the good ideas and the bad ideas. And so that's also probably happening today. But it doesn't mean that anything that's happening isn't real. Like, AI is real, and it is going to change every industry. In fact, it's a very unusual technology in that regard, in that it's a horizontal enabling layer. Today we talk about AI first companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and Mistral and so on and so on and so on. There are so many startup companies that are kind of AI companies of various kinds. And that's normal for this phase. But that is not the biggest impact that AI is going to have. The biggest impact that AI is going to have is it is going to affect every company in the world. It is going to make their quality go up and their productivity go up. I mean, by every company, I literally mean every company, every manufacturing company, every hotel, every, consumer products company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is hard to fathom, but it's real. There is no doubt. We don't know how long it will take exactly. We don't know how quickly that transition will occur. It'll probably occur at different rates in different industries, but that is very real. Now,
so, I mean, look, you got Bezos. You got Bezos who believes that, although he did use the word bubble, he said, hey, it's a bit of an industrial bubble because a lot of this stuff that's being built out, you might not use. Even Mike Novogratz said, hey, some of these data centers are probably not going to get used. But when you get a deal like OpenAI and AMD today, it makes you think maybe a lot more of it's going to be used than what people think. SoFi right there, still at 2650, because the demand for compute is off the charts. And it doesn't look like, at least right now, that it's slowing down. AMD 208. I think AMD gets the $200 close today. I think that's it for today's show, guys. I'll be back on the market close. But congrats to everyone in AMD. And I think it holds on. I don't think this one fades below 200. And if it does, it is what it is. It's still a big day. The fact that $600 a share is their trajectory for OpenAI to get paid just shows how confident Lisa Su is. Which is very, very, very nice to see. Grab right there. That's up 2%. Hopefully we can break through 630. The S&P still holding on at 670. Palantir back to the 180s. Hoodie 147. Salesforce down 1%. PayPal actually up 3%. Elf's up a little bit. Apple's down. SMCI and Dell, they're both getting some love. Ethereum and Bitcoin, can't be too upset about them. Ethereum close to all-time highs. Bitcoin making new all-time highs. Circle's up 1.3. Microsoft's back into the 520s. Hopefully that can get into the 530s. Uber's up a bit. ASTS, amazing day, breaking through 72. And then Rock Lab basically at all-time highs at 57.44. It is just an incredible time to be an investor. It really, really, really is. And again, I say this knowing that any of these stocks that we are all bullish on, they have a bad earnings, they get hammered. That gets destroyed. So this is not a market that's rewarding lack of growth. It's just not. Like, look at stocks that are not growing. The markets, and if they are not growing and they're getting rewarded, it's because they're in a sector that is in such high demand. Like, there wasn't, like 2021, I know there was kind of high demand for Peloton because everyone was staying at home, and that's why I got rewarded, even though there was no earnings growth. But there's actual high demand for energy, which is why an Oklo is getting some love. Not saying that justifies the valuation, just saying that is why it's there. If you don't have earnings, you're not getting any love. And I think that's the difference between this market and 3 years ago. And as long as that continues with earnings growth, we should hopefully continue seeing momentum. Word of the day, Pinye. Pinye. I would have said pin it, but that Y right there is making me think it's Pinye. That would be kind of French, but let's see.
Pinnate.
No, Pinay. Okay, my gut reaction would have been right. Of a leaf with smaller leaflets arranged with either side of its stalk or stem. Okay, this is the most boring word of the day that I've ever seen. The word of the day is AMD, baby. That's the word of the day. That is really the word of the day. Unofficial word of the day is freaking AMD. 3 words of the day: advanced micro devices. Not the advanced money destroyer anymore. 27% on the day. And quite incredible. So there we go. Dude, that looks like a weed. No, we got Tilray earnings this week, so we'll see. We'll see what's going on with that. All right, I'm out. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I thought I would have a harder time talking today because of like the little swelling on my. I still look like a little bit of a chipmunk here, but dude, as soon as we got into the show, the energy of just like that you guys had and that I was able to get from you guys talking about this deal today, it didn't even hurt for the past 2 hours. So very, very grateful for all of you guys. Incredible day. Congratulations to AMD. We'll be back on the market close. We'll try to get a lot more analysis on this OpenAI deal. And yeah, for those that are in it, it's a big day. So really, really, really big day. It was enough of a big day to crash pretty much every broker. Robinhood the worst, but it was one of those days. It was one of those days for AMD. Edward, thanks for the super chat. Got my wife into AMD at $16.99 on her traditional IRA. Wow. Amit, I tried to DM you on X. I wanted to gift you a stock market picture frame. Edward, DM me again, and I'll respond today. But please do not send me a gift, dude. I'm just so grateful that people come here every day and that they're excited to be part of the market open. And on a day like this, last week we had the Hood community get some love. IREN community got some love. A couple weeks before that, when Palantir was going up, Palantir community, like every week you have different stock. Nebius community got love the day after that Microsoft announcement back in early September. I mean, it seems like every week there's another part of this market that gets to really enjoy what's going on because we're getting a diverse, broad-based rally, which is very, very exciting to see. And then hopefully Tesla tomorrow. Hopefully Tesla with this 10/7 announcement, whatever it is. We don't even know what time they're announcing it. We'll try to see what happens with Tesla. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Love you all. I'll be back on the market close. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.